Outside in the Twin Cities, very warm. Heat wave in Minnesota. Temperature today in the 90s. Very comfortable low indoors. The Metrodome, home of the 1987 world champion Minnesota Twins. But this year, a whole other story. Minnesota right now in 5th place, 12 games out in the American League West. I'm Al Michaels. Welcome to our final regular season Thursday night telecast. And primarily, we decided this would be a good game to cover, in as much as the Baltimore Orioles have been a huge story in baseball this year, on top in the American League East. But right now, they've lost 7 straight. But we walked right into a bigger story, at least the biggest story of the day, and that is the possibility of a trade between the New York Mets and the Minnesota Twins that would send Frank Viola to the New York Mets for 3 pitchers, Rick Aguilera and David West, who are with the Mets right now, and Kevin Tapani, who was with New York earlier this month and is now back in AAA at Tidewater. There is Andy MacPhail, who is the Executive Vice President and General Manager of the Minnesota Twins. And shortly after the game begins, we will talk to Andy in terms of what is happening in the very latest as to the possibility of that deal. So the question is, will Frank Viola be in Detroit this weekend with Minnesota or in Chicago with the Mets? I asked Frank an hour ago what he thinks about the possible trade to the Mets.
Well, when I first started to play the game, I always realized I knew how hard it was to stay in one place your whole career. I have a home here. I love it here in Minnesota, but you know, times change. I'm very fortunate to sit here with you and say I've been in Minnesota for 8 glorious years right now. But, you know, in New York, I'd be very comfortable. I have my high school buddies, my college buddies, all my family and friends there. And, you know, it's a situation I can't lose in. And I guess the one token you have to look at is the Mets are still in the pennant race here, where we have to get above 5 more teams. And, but, you know, it's got its negative points and its positive points. But as of right now, I'm looking at you. I don't have any negative points for it to go either way, so we'll see what happens.
World Series MVP in 1987, All-Star Game starter in 88, Cy Young Award winner in 88, and that pretty much sums up the sentiments of those in the Twin Cities. Again, we'll talk to Andy MacPhail about the latest in regard to that prospective trade during the course of the game. As far as the Baltimore Orioles are concerned, well, things look pretty good for Baltimore about a week ago. In fact, as we go back to the morning of the 19th of July, just 8 days ago, the Baltimore Orioles not only on top in the American League East, but leading New York by 7.5, with Toronto 8.5 back, and Boston and Cleveland and Milwaukee seemingly out of it, along with Detroit. But here's what a 7-game losing streak will do. Baltimore still on top, but Toronto and Cleveland have closed to within 4.5. The Red Sox are now only 5.5 back. Milwaukee is 6.5 behind, and the Yankees, who've been playing miserably of late, are still only 7 games back, and obviously with 2 months to go, very much in it. Tim McCarver, let's take a look at the American League East, and what do you foresee happening over the next couple of months in the AL East?
Well, I think, Al, a lot over the past few years has been said about parity in the NFL, and I believe a case can be made for parity in the American League East, what with only 2.5 games separating the middle 5 teams. At the rate these teams are playing, the winner of the American League East probably won't win 90 games. So what, you might say, I mean, even 2 years ago, the Minnesota Twins with an 85-77 record won the World Series. The Baltimore lead has been 7.5 games. That's been the most that they've been out, and I think that's heartening for Baltimore fans, because dating back to 1954, when the St. Louis Browns came to Baltimore and became the Baltimore Orioles, never, not 1 year, have the Orioles been 5 games ahead or more and not won a pennant. It's a great Cinderella story, Al. It's a matter, I think, as far as the Orioles are concerned, as to whether the party's going to last past midnight or not.
I think Frank Robinson is looking for any silver lining in this storm right now. He'd like to head for Kansas City with a victory. What about the players? Well, who better to sum up the mood of the Baltimore Orioles than Cal Ripken, who was there when they won the world title in '83, and of course he was there last year when they lost 107 games. Jim Palmer talked to the Orioles shortstop.
Cal, last year, the 21-game losing streak, the Orioles now, after playing very well all year, have lost now 7 in a row. When you come to the ballpark, do you expect to win? I mean, is anything from last year kind of hovering over this ball club?
Well, this ball club is totally different from last year. The personnel is totally different. The approach to the game seems to be different. You know, when the season starts, you're going to go through hot periods and cold periods, and there's nothing that can be brought to this club that was evident last year with the 21-game losing streak. There's no way that you can say, well, we've lost 7 in a row. And since I've been a part of that 21-game losing streak, you can't say, well, heck, we're going to lose 14 more in a row. We expect to win tonight. We expected to win last night. We had a 4-1 lead. So we don't think about the 7-game losing streak.
Okay, you're the big guy on the ball club. Do you put undue pressure on yourself when you come out to the ball game expecting that, hey, Cal Ripken's going to do it by himself?
Well, that's one lesson that I've learned the last couple of years, and the fact that we've lost, and I felt that way. I said, well, you know, we're losing. Maybe if I have a bigger game or a bigger week, then we'll win a few games. But you find out very quickly that one person can't decide a ball game. You got to have contributions from everybody on your club. And that's why we're successful this year, because we've had contributions from everybody in the lineup, and it's made my job a whole lot easier. So I have learned a lesson, and when everybody does their job, it takes the pressure off someone in the middle of the lineup like myself.
Well, good luck the rest of the year, and thank you.
Thank you.
And they'll try to get a contribution tonight as we take a look at the starting pitchers from the rookie Pete Harnish, who's matched up against Roy Smith of
ABC's Thursday Night Baseball, brought to you by Sharp Electronics. From sharp minds come sharp products. By Saab and your local Saab dealers, who invite you to test drive one of the most intelligent cars ever built. By the Upjohn Company, if you're concerned about hair loss, see your doctor. And by Miller Genuine Draft, cold filtered for real draft taste, so tap into the cold.
Baltimore and Minnesota wrapping up a 3-game series. The Twins winning the first 2. In the lineup tonight for Baltimore, Brady Anderson leads off, and Phil Bradley will be in left field hitting second. The rookie Steve Finley in right bats third. Cal Ripken is in the cleanup spot. The catcher, Mickey Tettleton, batting 5th. Jim Traber is the first baseman. Larry Sheets is the designated hitter, batting 7th. Craig Worthington, the everyday third baseman, hitting in the 8th spot. And Billy Ripken will bat 9th, with Pete Harnish on the mound for Baltimore. For the Minnesota Twins, the outfield of Bush, Puckett, and Larkin, with Gaetti at third. Doug Baker, last night's hero at short. Al Newman, the second baseman, and Kent Herbeck, who homered twice last night at first. Brian Harper does the catching. And on the mound for the Minnesota Twins is Roy Smith, who has a lot of no decisions this season. His record above 500, but it should be, because he is the best supported pitcher in the majors this season. The Twins have averaged 6.12 runs for Smith in his 17 starts.
And before last Saturday, had not won in 53 days, so has struggled. He's the type of guy that has to be exact. Will run the fastball in and out, not a whole lot of movement, big curveball, occasional changeup. Pitched against the Orioles one time, all the way back in April. That was his first start, and won 8-3.
And he starts by facing Brady Anderson, who's been hurt, so Anderson has barely played in the last 2.5 weeks, and he takes a strike, and the count is 0-1.
It was on a streak where he was 13 for 90, so started out the year where he walked, getting on base. His on-base percentage still over 300, but has been struggling with the bat.
Outside on the count, 1-1.
They listed his problems as back problems, but he really had some tendonitis problems in his throwing arm, which is his left one.
James Lowe, and the count 2-1. Anderson came over last year in the deal with Boston that sent Mike Boddicker to the Red Sox. And he pops it up in foul territory. Gary Gaetti gives chase, and I believe it hits the railing and bounces away. So Gary Gaetti going all the way over to the front row, but unable to make the play, in the count 2-2. Here's another look.
It might be a good thing that Gary was in front of this ball, because had he been eye level with that pole, that ball came right off the top railing and could have caused serious injury.
Still 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Al, you mentioned Mike Boddicker. He has been red hot for the Red Sox, and that's what the Red Sox need. Boddicker's won 5 in a row with an ERA of below a half a run a game in his last 5 decisions.
Well, when that deal was made last year, it was at about the time when the Orioles, obviously going nowhere, the 21-game losing streak, and they began to dismantle and reassemble the ball club, and Boddicker was expendable. And there's Frank Robinson, who had taken over from Cal Ripken Sr. early in that losing streak, and Anderson, one of the the key people acquired in the restructuring of the Orioles.
Oh, a gifted athlete. You know, they do all kinds of agility drills. They have a new strength coach over here in Baltimore. Al Johnson, they did the vertical leap. He had the highest one, quickest in the 60-yard dash. Good athlete.
Off speed, just missing. Ball 3. Darrell Cousins is the plate umpire. Full count.
One of those pitches, if you asked from a pitcher's standpoint where it was, it went around the plate.
And Anderson fouls it away again. So Smith throwing a lot of pitches to the game's leadoff hitter.
Well, that's the one thing Brady's been able to do when he's, even when he has been struggling, and he's 13 for 90, he has been able to walk. Not a lot of whole base hits during that period, though. Had a spring training where he did not. He hit right around 220, but led the club with walks with 17. Last year, he did neither. Didn't hit or walk. Very aggressive.
And again, the 3-2 pitch fouled away. So Smith already in double figures in pitches thrown to the game's leadoff hitter.
I mentioned that on-base percentage of about almost a third. And early in the year, it was up when he was getting hits. He was hitting close to 300. It was up there about 45% of the time. So he can steal if he gets on with 15 steals, only been caught twice.
And ball 4. And that is truly working a pitcher for a walk. Fouling off several. And Brady Anderson is on to start the game. And Phil Bradley is the batter. Baltimore, especially their defense, so good through the early part of the season. There's a comparison on the left, their numbers for the first 91 games, and the difference on the right, the last 7 games. Batting average 50 points lower, runs per game almost 3 runs a game lower, and a considerable difference defensively as well. Phil Bradley, a pitch out and a throw down to first by Harper as Anderson scoots back.
Well, it's always a hard thing to do for a catcher to pitch out in the first inning after the pitcher has walked the leadoff hitter, because now Bradley's ahead 1-0 in the count. You don't mind pitching out when a pitcher can pitch from behind, but I don't think Leroy Purdy Smith III, gotta love it. I don't think he is the type of pitcher who can pitch from behind. Not many can.
Comes right back with a curveball. You'd think he'd try to get a fastball for a strike. I guess it tells you that he's going to have to be successful. Brian Harper, who's catching him, thinks he's going to have to get that pitch over. Another thing, of course, Bradley is a pretty aggressive hitter. Figure that he is up there to swing.
Leads the club in hitting. Phil batting .297. The 2-0 pitch. They appeal at first. No, says first base umpire Vic Voltaggio, and the count 3 balls and no strikes. And Bradley looks at a strike for 3-1 with nobody out in the top of the first inning. Anderson at first base. Brady with 15 steals and only caught twice, away to his lead with the count 3-1. And Smith, a tough man to steal against. And that graphic illustrates it.
Yeah, 6'3", about 215 pounds. So you would think it'd take him a bit of a time to get rid of the ball. Makes it a little bit easier to steal on.
Anderson gets a good jump that time, but it's fouled away in the count 3-2.
What makes him easy to steal on also makes him easy to hit. He's allowed 16 home runs in 103 innings, which means he keeps the ball up. And any pitcher who keeps the ball up, it's much easier for a catcher to throw runners out when the ball is up in the strike zone.
It's all right to be up in the strike zone. You just don't want to do it 3-1. You want to do it 0-2, 1-2. So you can throw it out of the strike zone.
3-2 pitch. Anderson goes. Bradley fouls it away. So Brady goes back to first. The risk you run here, of course, is that Bradley is going to strike out, and he does strike out with some frequency. He's on a pace to strike out close to 100 times this year. He's already fanned on 60 occasions. Anderson goes, and it's outside for ball 4. So not only 2 walks, but a lot of pitches thrown by Smith to the first 2 batters here in the first inning. And Steve Finley comes up.
And one of the best bunters on the team. I don't know if they'll bunt this early. They've been playing pretty conservatively as late. Talking to Steve before the game, last year he led the International League in hitting, had 35 bunt base hits.
Gaetti shortened up at third, and Finley bunts toward third, and Smith comes down off the mound to field. Throw to first, not in time there with Newman covering. And Newman calls time to plead his case with Vic Voltaggio. So Finley not only does the job moving the runners along, but a bunt single, and the bases are loaded with nobody out.
Again, you cannot assume as a third baseman that your pitcher's going to make this play. He does it about as well as he can, and he beat that play, or at least it was a tie. Take another look right here.
I thought he had him.
Okay. Like I said, he had him.
Anderson is now at third, Bradley at second, and Finley at first. Palmer, I always knew you to stand your ground. What happened?
You know, a lot of umpires get tricked on short hop plays at first base. A lot of them make the outer safe call on contact, and sometimes the ball hits the ground instead of the glove. So Vic could have been fooled on that pitch.
Also, a very unusual defense when you look at it. I mean, you got a scouting report on Finley. He's hitting around 230 as you look at Vic Voltaggio down at first. Gaetti's got to be playing in. I mean, you just can't assume that your pitcher's going to get to a good bunt, and he did make a good bunt.
Yeah, especially the way the Orioles have been scoring runs lately.
I mean, they bunted trailing 3-1 the other night in the 6th inning with Joe Orsulak after he singled off a left-hander the time before. Very conservative.
The 1-0 to Ripken, in there for a strike, and the count 1-1. So nobody out in the first. Smith has already thrown 22 pitches, and the Orioles with the bases loaded.
You know, you like to go out there in the first inning and get loose, but you don't want to carry to an extreme.
One and two.
Cal Ripken, who's been struggling. I mean, his average around 275, big long swing, probably a better slider breaking ball hitter than really hitting the good stuff. And most pitchers will have that good velocity, maybe a couple more miles per hour in the first inning, unless you're talking about Gooden or Clemens can keep it for 9.
Off-speed curve, and he comes around, and down he goes. And Ripken is telling the plate umpire, Cousins, how could you call it? If anything, it has to be an appeal, and Voltaggio should make the call.
That's what he's saying, Al. At least ask for help. How can you call the pitch as a strike and also be able to call the swing?
Dad comes down from the third base coaching box to have his word with Cousins as well, and now Frank Robinson acts as the intermediary, but he will pick up the torch in a moment.
And the one thing a manager can't argue about a ball or a strike. So Frank really out there as a buffer zone between Ripken and Darryl Cousins.
Ripken and Ripken.
Ripken and Ripken, and yes.
Well, he wants Cal to be in the game, obviously, for the rest of the game, and his dad, pretty good third base coach. You don't want to lose either one of them.
Oh, he went too far.
Definitely looked
Good
like
call.
he swung.
Yeah.
I'll agree with you there. Definite swing. Good angle here. Of course, you get these kind of reactions when you lose 7 in a row.
That's right. Regardless of how many years you've been around.
Tettleton at the plate, and the count is 0-1. Not that either guy came really close to getting thrown out of the game, but I would guess there has never been a father and son ejection in the history of baseball, and certainly not by a cousin, Darryl Cousins. Another strike, and the count 0-2. No score, top of the first. Called strike 3. So with the bases loaded and nobody out, Smith strikes Ripken out with his 13 home runs and strikes Tettleton out with his 21.
Well, look at the catcher and look where the ball goes. That ball looks about 4 inches outside.
Yeah, it was. The reason he got that strike, and Mickey Tettleton knows that because he's a catcher. The reason he got it, even though he was 3 or 4 inches outside, Smith hit the target. That's the advantage a catcher has in moving outside as opposed to putting his glove outside. When you move outside, you center the ball. It gives the umpire a much better shot, and that's what Harper did then.
Jim Traber at the plate with 2 out and the bases loaded. I always thought Tommy Lasorda's lips were the easiest in baseball to read until that last close-up of Tettleton.
Well, Mickey pretty quiet mannered, doesn't really react too much. Today it looks like Cousins is going to be a pitcher's umpire tonight.
And the count 1-2.
If you don't have to throw the ball over, obviously.
And here comes Robinson again to try to keep Traber in the game. And again, Frank can't argue balls or strikes, so he has to take the discussion in another direction, sort of.
Well, again, he just doesn't want one of his players being thrown out. Again, and look where Harper sits. That ball never even close to the plate. Now, again, Cousins with a big strike zone, and it works both ways. Some hitters will say, hey, okay, at least I know he's consistent, but it is real tough to hit when you're getting an extra 2 or 3 inches, especially in the first inning when you don't really know where the strike zone is yet.
Well, you know, also, I don't think Traber would have been that vocal had the check swing not been called on Ripken and had Tettleton not thought the
or
ball
if they had
was
lost
outside
7 in a
also.
row. That has a lot to do with it.
That's true.
Of course,
That's true.
you know, the way before that 7-game winning streak, they won 5 in a row.
Here's the 1-2 pitch, and it's grounded to the right side. Herbeck fields and shovels to Smith, and Smith throws 31 pitches, but he gets out of the inning the hard way after the Orioles had loaded the bases with nobody out. Baltimore nothing, and the Twins coming up. Twins tonight. Randy Bush leads off in left, and then you've got Baker, last night's hero, at shortstop. Kirby in center field, batting third, Kirby Puckett. Ken Herbeck at first base, Gary Gaetti batting in the number 5 spot. Jim Dwyer, former Oriole, doing a great job as the Twins DH now. Gene Larkin in right field. Brian Harper does the catching, and Al Newman is at second base. Wally Backman is still on the disabled list for the Twins. And the Orioles defensively, the outfield of Bradley, Anderson, and Finley, with Worthington at third, and the Ripken brothers, the double play combination. Traber at first, Mickey Tettleton back of the plate. Pete Harnish on the mound for the Baltimore Orioles. Began the year with a big club, sent out to Rochester for a couple of months. Recall before the All-Star game, Jim Palmer does the Orioles play-by-play on television. What do we look for, Jim?
Well, you look for a lot of hard stuff. Fastball, slider, trying to work on a changeup. 5-5 at Rochester. And his best games have all been losses. He's won 1, lost 3. Got shut out by Saberhagen early in the year, and then just the other night, actually afternoon, in Oakland lost 3-1. Canseco hitting a solo home run late in the ball game. Give you quality innings, but I'll tell you what he can't do is what Roy Smith did. He cannot spot the ball. He's not going to get those pitches off the corner because he's not consistent. He'll be up and down and maybe in and out. At least that's been the way Pete Harnish has been the most of the year. But a good arm. Throw the ball hard, well over 90 miles per hour.
Randy Bush leads things off, takes outside. The graphic denoting his slump during the month of July, but one reason he's in the outfield and playing on an everyday basis is the the disabling of Dan Gladden, the regular left fielder. He's on the disabled list. They hope to have him back sometime in early August, and so Tom Kelly forced to go to his bench.
Yeah, just watch Mickey Tettleton's glove, and you'll have an idea of how wild Pete Harnisch can be. Watch the glove and then see where the ball goes. With Harper getting those extra 3 or 4 inches, mainly because Smith could put the ball there.
3-1 the count. And there is Dan Gladden on the DL. Wrench. As Bush draws the walk. So the Twins get the leadoff man on. Baker will come up. And a light schedule in both leagues today. The scores in the American League. Rob Deere, a grand slam in Milwaukee's 11-1 win over Detroit. Royals and Red Sox underway at Fenway. Chicago, California later. Cincinnati snapped its 10-game losing streak today, beating San Diego. Eddie Murray hit a pinch 3-run homer in the top of the 9th at the Astrodome. LA beats Houston. Pirates knock off the Mets 10-8. As Baker takes inside, and Tettleton will visit the mound.
I think with a young pitcher, Harnisch only 22 years old, if you're the catcher, instead of having Pete work to the target of the mitt, you try to have him throw to 4 corners. The 4 corners being the 2 shoulders and the right and left knee. That gives him a bigger target at which to throw. So you can see the 2 shoulders and the 2 knee pads. You put your glove right in the middle of him. He doesn't have to be too fine.
And Harnisch not even close here, and it winds up hitting him. So Baker hit by a pitch. Bush goes to second. The Twins have runners at first and second with nobody out. Robinson is going to send Al Jackson to the mound, and the pitching coach will try to settle Harnisch down.
Yeah, look where Tettleton is. Look where the ball is. I mean, he missed by almost 18 inches. And, of course, Pete, 22 years of age, has struggled with his control. 6 walks per 9 innings at major league level, and he has a lot of trouble controlling his emotions. And I mean, I don't mean getting angry, just being very hyper, wants to get out there. I mean, you got to give him sedative almost to kind of calm him down. He roamed the outfield, the locker room, the halls here at Metrodome, just getting ready for tonight's start.
Well, part of that makeup is good, but you hope he grows out of the bad part. There aren't too many young, aggressive players who have the demeanor of a guy who's been around for a lot of years. Unfortunately, they don't come in the same package.
Now the umpires gathered round Darrell Cousins in the Minnesota dugout.
It looked to me, Al, like Cousins was hit on the right foot with the pitch. Let's see if we can, or the back foot. It's actually the left foot. He's hit on the left instep by the pitch as the pitch gets away from Tettleton. He caught it on the carom. It caromed off the leg of Doug Baker, off the foot of Baker.
A good shot of it right there.
Yeah, right foot to left foot off 2 different people.
You think after the first inning that the Orioles are rooting for a quick comeback?
Well, did you notice that Cousins went to the Twins dugout for some aid?
Yeah, they hope he's hurt after that first inning. I could just see him walking in. Richie Banzel, the Oriole trainer, said, "Ice it yourself."
Well, you know, the umpires do wear those hard shoes, but it appeared that that ball hit the ground and bounced up and hit Cousins maybe either in the instep or the ankle. You can see the hard shoes that umpires wear. For years, they've been trying to devise something like that for a catcher, but the difference is a catcher can't get down on his haunches if he has hard-toed shoes.
Right. It would have to be something pliable and flexible. Kirby Puckett. With nobody out, runners at first and second. And Puckett has done it long enough now and with enough consistency that superstar should be attached to his name. Unqualified.
And he carries it so well. Right along with superstar, nice guy, personable, outgoing.
Well, one of the stories, oddly, recently here has been Puckett contending that he's not in the groove, according to Kirby. He's not in the groove with a .341 average and 7 homers and 53 runs batted in.
Batted .407 in the Metrodome last year, .406 actually. Batting .377 here at home this year.
Leads the majors in doubles with 32 and lets a fly ball to right field. Starting back and now coming in is Finley, and Finley may have lost it even though he's played here before in the roof at the Metrodome, and that's not an uncommon sight in Minnesota.
Unusually, a lot of times you only lose it when you look at another outfielder. We saw that in the '87 World Series. But as you look around, the Oriole outfielders in the previous 2 games have had trouble breaking back on balls they've had to come in for. In fact, even Gene Larkin, playing right field for the Twins tonight, said the lights have been bothersome this year.
Now Ken Herbeck. 2 booming home runs last night. But it's been a tough season for Herbeck. He's been slumping. He's been hurt. And in the first inning this year, struggling. Two and 0 the count.
Well, actually, for Harnish, the best matchup was Puckett because Kirby doesn't want to walk. Very aggressive. The rest of these guys are pretty patient. They're going to have to make good pitches, get them in good spots. I agree with you, Tim. For a young pitcher, you can't, unless you're an exceptional young pitcher, you just try to throw the ball over. A good strike for Pete Harnish is anywhere in the strike zone. A good strike for Roy Smith is right where Brian Harper's glove is. Big difference.
And Herbeck on a 3-0 pitch, hits one in the gap and all the way to the wall. Bush will come in to score. Baker around third. He'll come in to score on a double by Herbeck.
Not always the walks that bury a pitcher. It's what happens after those walks are on base and what you do when you then fall behind. And Frank Robinson has seen his team fall behind an awful lot the past week.
Also great managing by Kelly because he knows he got an inexperienced pitcher. Probably take something off. You can see the double playing Herbeck around. Tell you what, if you don't let the guy swing, that's the strike. Takes it right down the middle, and maybe it's in a double play. To give Tom Crelly a lot of credit there.
Yeah, you could see that was one of those tentative fastballs, Jim. One of those that a hitter, that ball looks about 3 times the size that it really is.
And then he fools Gaetti, who hits a check swing roller down to Billy Ripken, and he throws him out as Herbeck advances to third. So 2 down with Minnesota leading 2-0. And Jim Dwyer will come to the plate.
When he does get it over, he could be tough to hit. Good hard slider, almost as quick as his fastball, and Gaetti, frustrated, just hits a little weak ground ball to second base.
Jim Dwyer, average .326 and .342 in situations such as this, takes inside, ball 1. So Gaetti the second out of the inning on a check swing roller. And it's up to Dwyer to pick up Herbeck. Dwyer with the Orioles for several years, and he goes all the way back to 1973 in the big leagues when he broke in with the Cardinals. Outside. And the count 2-0.
One of the great pinch hitters for the Orioles, along with Terry Crowley. Jim now about 94 lifetime pinch hits, sometimes with the Red Sox. Hits the ball the other way very, very well.
And he pops it up. Near second, Billy Ripken is there and makes the catch to retire the side. But the Twins cash in for a couple in the first. And at the end of 1, Minnesota 2, Baltimore nothing. Now, the Orioles have lost 7 straight, the record for most consecutive losses by a team in first place, and while they were in first place, would be the Pittsburgh Pirates back in 1932. Larry Sheets starts the second inning. That's the the Major League record, but we'll recall the graphic in a moment and show you the American League mark. As the next pitch misses, ball 2, and the count 2-0. The American League record, as you see, held by the Yankees in 53 and the Twins in 70. While in first place, those teams each lost 9 straight. It's a good news, bad news thing. The good news was that the Yankees in 53 and the Twins in 70 still went on to finish first. The Yankees winning the pennant in 53, and then in 70 they had divisional play, and the Twins won the West. As Sheets swings and misses. The Pirates, meanwhile, in 32 did not win the pennant. The Cubs won that year.
Yeah, you go back to 83, the last time the Orioles won a division championship, a World Series. They had 2 7-game losing streaks.
In the air to deep left center field, Kirby Puckett races back and makes the catch. And that's sort of an overlooked aspect of Kirby Puckett. If you don't watch him that much, you know what he can do offensively, and you always see his name up among the league leaders in batting and doubles, etc. But he plays center field about as well as it can be played as well.
Just an outstanding catch. Talked to you about his hitting. Al just told you about, I think it's a guy that batted it or pitched against him. I've never thought he was an underrated center fielder. He could just do so many things so well.
Worthington takes up high, ball 1. You know, the funny thing about Puckett, through the years, we've grown so used to seeing all of those highlights of Kirby leaping up and reaching over and taking so many home runs away through the years, especially here at the Metrodome. And we've got it on tape for you a little bit later. Stick around if you haven't seen it. I know a lot of people haven't because it happened late Saturday night in Anaheim. But Gary Pettis made a catch that's about as good as any I've ever seen. Swing and a miss, and the count 2-1.
What makes all good center fielders make great plays look routine is the jump they get on the ball. And Kirby Puckett doesn't time things. You see a lot of outfielders timing balls now. Kirby Puckett doesn't do that.
Worthington lifts it in the air to left field. Bush tells Puckett he'll take charge, and that's out number 2.
And then there's the throwing aspect of center field for Kirby.
Speaking of that catch, well, we won't tease you any longer. Here it was Saturday night. Brian Downing at the plate, and this is as far over and down as I've ever seen a center fielder go to take a home run away from anybody. Gary Pettis, former Angel, knows that wall very well. Wow. Billy Ripken tries to bunt his way on. It's almost as if there was a table on the other side of the wall with a ball on it, plucking it off and bringing it back.
That's a bad play by Ripken. 2 out, nobody on. You're trailing by 2. I mean, Brady Anderson, Phil Bradley coming up the top of the order. It's a bad play to bunt in that situation. That's the reason Gaetti's giving it to him. If he wants to take it, go ahead and take it. If you come to a ballpark and you see the third baseman playing back with a guy who can bunt, then bunting's not in order. 2 out, nobody on. You try to go for an extra base hit. Generally speaking, unless it's a National League, when your eighth place hitter wants to bunt and maybe get on and clear the pitcher. But in the American League, rarely is it a good play.
Baker goes out, and he'll handle Billy Ripken's pop-up. And after a shaky start, Smith has set down 6 straight. 2-0 Twins at the end of 1.5. We played earlier what Viola's reaction would be, Frank Viola's reaction to a possible trade to the New York Mets. He would not mind it. And we'll play for you now another part of the conversation I had with him about an hour before game time. When did this first come to your attention?
After the game last night, I had around 20 reporters standing around me, and I was wondering what I did last night. You know, it was a heck of a game, but I didn't know I had something to do with it. And then they went on and told me that they heard a rumor in New York that you've been traded, and that's all I heard from there. And, you know, right now I'm just sitting back, wearing my Minnesota uniform and hoping to pitch tomorrow night with Minnesota.
And what did you think about first when you got up this morning?
Well, New York wouldn't be that bad, but you know, I'll say it again. I love Minnesota, and we'll just have to see what happens.
So again, there is Frank Viola for the moment at Twins, seated next to Kirby Puckett, and we'll talk to Andy MacPhail very shortly, the general manager of the Twins, and get the latest as to the possibility of that occurring before the trading deadline, which is July 31st. And there is the vice president and general manager of the Twins. One and two to count on Larkin. Larkin, Harper, and Newman, bottom of the second inning, 2-0 Minnesota. And down he goes. So Harnish, after a shaky start, gets things in gear. Beginning the second inning with a strikeout of Larkin, and it brings up Brian Harper.
I don't know whether the Mets will make the trade with Viola, but from a Twins perspective, had the trade been made or talked about 3 months ago, it would have made more sense, because that's when Viola was haggling with Twins management about a new contract. So from their standpoint, not from the Mets standpoint, but from the Twins standpoint, trying to trade Viola 3 months ago would have made more sense than trying to do it now. I think, for instance, they would probably have gotten more for him 3 months ago.
Grounded to the right side, and Billy Ripken goes over to Traver to take care of Harper for the second out, with Al Newman coming to the plate.
Well,
what do you think, Jim?
Very rocky marriage, though, here, even after they signed. Viola asked for the same thing Hershiser got. He eventually, then he says, hey, it's been nice pitching for you. He eventually gets it. And, you know, they drew $3 million first time in American League history last year. He had $3 million allies when he won the Cy Young Award in 24 wins. But after he turned down the 7.9, there used to be sweet music Viola. Now it's sour music Viola here. He's 8-11, too. That doesn't help it any.
But still, a trade of Viola, I don't think would be greeted with much enthusiasm in Minneapolis.
Right, unless they get something like they did up in Seattle for Langston.
But even if you wind up getting, you know, the three pitchers from the Mets, I mean, how well known are they? I think the fans initially want to see a big name coming the other way.
Well, and also they want a commitment for the Twins to try to win. This is kind of an unusual year, and a lot of injuries, Herbeck being out for 6 weeks and things like that. So I think they have to, I mean, the fans have supported him. They're going to pay him the money. If you look at Tom Kelly, he'd like to have Viola. He knows what he can do.
From the Mets standpoint, the reason that the trade is more palatable right now is because Doc Gooden's on the shelf. Gooden was healthy 3 months ago.
And you don't want to let Montreal get out of sight as
Right.
Newman draws ball 4. So a 2-out walk to the number 9 hitter, and to the top of the order now, and Randy Bush.
And plus, Montreal, the way they went out and they got Mark Langston, they got Zane Smith, the other left-hander, and he's in the bullpen now. So that puts yet more heat on the New York Mets to make a major trade. And Viola would be a major trade.
He's got the right accent to go with Shea Stadium.
He does indeed.
Well, Frank from Long Island.
Right. Went to St. John's University.
And so is Pete Harnish.
Pete went to Fordham.
Yes, but I mean from Long Island.
Frank graduated. Pete attended Fordham, as did Roy Smith. We have Fordham against Fordham tonight. Huh?
And Gene Larkin of Columbia playing in the game. I want these guys with me when we go on Jeopardy. I know that. 1-0 the count on Bush. Twins 2, Orioles nothing.
Say Newman with 15 steals. Not a bad shot to let him run here with 2 down. He gets thrown out. You got Bush, your leadoff hitter, leading off. And they pitch out.
Yep, Orioles thinking that way. And pitching out 2-0, the count now 3-0.
Well, you can't really do that with a guy like Harnish. I mean, you're really taking a gamble. You talked about it back in the first inning with Roy Smith. He's a control pitcher compared to Pete Harnish. So you take a big gamble.
That sure looked like a pitch out, though, and you could tell it by Tettleton. By Tettleton, 2-0 pitch out.
And then 3-0, he swings away and rifles it foul, and the count is 3-1.
Desperate action by desperate men. That's what a 7-game losing streak will do. I I mean, you think you got to get a hit. That's why they got so upset in the first inning. You got to get the big inning. Well, they got 4 runs last night. End up losing. They have not lost many games this year, talking about the Orioles they should have won, with the exception of maybe last night.
There he goes. The pitch is low. And Newman in at second. The scoreboard had it 3-1.
Yeah, I think it was 2-1.
Must have been 2-1.
Yeah.
Even though the scoreboard, you're right, it was wrong.
That explains the pitch out then.
Right.
But still a 1-0 pitch out, and I guess you take a gamble there. Now the count's 3-1 on this particular pitch, and Newman on a ball that's not very good for a catcher to throw. Very close, but safe. You have another guy in scoring position.
Boy, you love to see a shortstop or a second baseman take the ball on the bag as opposed to catching it in front of the bag and bringing it back. Ripken, a great shot there of him catching the ball on the bag.
Now the 3-1 pitch is a strike on the inside corner, and the count 3-2. Frank Robinson guiding this team to a big lead in the American League East, but right now in the throes of a 7-game losing streak. As Bush pops it up, and Worthington is there, and that's that in the second. We'll talk to Andy McPhail of the Twins when we come back in the third. 2-0 Minnesota. We're back at the Metrodome as the game continues. We're going to speak during this half inning with Andy McPhail in the foreground, who's the vice president and general manager of the Minnesota Twins. And Andy, can we assume to begin with that the trade being discussed right now is Viola for Aguilera, West, and Tapani? Are those the correct names?
No, not at this point. You're way ahead of us. You're way ahead of us.
Okay, well, those are the names speculated, and those are the names that have been speculated through the media all day long. Who is involved in at this point? What can you tell us?
Well, fortunately for us, Major League Rule 3J prohibits us from tampering and talking about other players, players on other clubs. You know, all I did, Lou, was pick up the phone and listen to the Mets, and that's pretty much where we are.
All right, so in other words, this was initiated by Frank Cashin and/or Joe McIlvaine of the Mets to begin with?
Yeah, well, as you can imagine now, they're anxious to get themselves stay up with Montreal in the race and the Cubs, and they've been anxious to try to fill that spot that Dwight Gooden vacated due to an injury. And, you know, I can understand looking down the standings and seeing Minnesota where we are, and possibility of Frank Viola, they'd have to consider it.
Meanwhile, Anderson has struck out to start the top of the third inning, and Bradley is the batter. Of course, time is of the essence here, Andy, because the trading deadline is just 4 days away.
And no question about that. And that is a meaningful deadline. And when you have a high-profile player like Frank Viola that is being speculated about being dealt, so there'd be no question that if it didn't happen by then, it wasn't going to happen.
All right, now as Bradley stands in, one thing I want to ask you about is Viola's contract, because he has a multi-year deal, and according to the basic agreement, a player traded during the middle of a multi-year contract can demand a trade at the end of the season. And obviously, I would think the Mets would want Viola to waive that. Is that a hang-up in the negotiations at the moment, or an item?
Well, I could, you know, you can anticipate that if the conversation never got that far, that would be something that the Mets would have to deal with, that, frankly, it would be their problem, not ours.
Mm-hmm. So are you saying there's nothing imminent right now, that we don't look for anything in the next couple of hours?
Not from the perception of the Minnesota Twins, that's for sure.
What will happen next? Will they get back to you? What is your understanding at the moment?
Well, anytime you're working with a real deadline and a concrete deadline, I think you can expect things probably heat up the closer that deadline approaches.
Mm-hmm. Newman backs up and handles the pop fly off the bat of Bradley. And with 2 down, the batter will be Steve Finley.
I'm grateful this is a short inning.
Yeah, well, we were hoping for 8 or 9 guys, and we could continue to discuss this. But anyway, we appreciate your coming by, sir.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Andy McPhail. So nothing has happened as of the moment. Frank Viola has a reserved seat on the charter to Detroit, and there will not be an ORD tag on his luggage tomorrow morning, at least as of this moment. ORD, the airport code for Chicago, where the Mets will play over the weekend. 0-2.
Well, people must understand that teams talk all the time, and they bring up names all the time, but this obviously is more than a rumor. Less than a fact, but more than a rumor.
Right. And I know Andy, he's begging the issue a little bit here by saying he can't mention those names, but he is right. I mean, there is a tampering situation that could develop if he says yes or no to certain names publicly. Grounded down to Herbeck, and Kent makes the play unassisted. And it's a quick inning, and Smith has set down 9 straight. 2-0 Twins. Social notes, Leo DeRocher is 84 today. Shane Rawley of the Minnesota Twins is 34. And our ace cameraman, Jack Savoy, is 104. Happy birthday, Jack.
Right.
And congratulations to Tommy O'Connell, who's been one of our cameramen since the outset of this series in 1976. He and his wife, Nancy, proud parents of Thomas John O'Connell, came in at 9 pounds 15 ounces, a real heavyweight. Congratulations to Tommy and Nancy O. As we go to the bottom of the 3rd, and Doug Baker to lead things off. Kind of a nostalgic night in a way. Our last regular season telecast on a package that began in 1976. We, of course, will be back for the World Series in October, but guys like Jack Savoy and Tommy O'Connell have been there since the outset. Steve Hurd, our director of information, and another Fordham Flash. Tim McCarver with the Phillies in 76, and Jim Palmer complaining about his ulnar nerve in 76.
You're laughing at it. You laugh at those things.
That was on the Orioles press conference.
I know. I tell you what. I told Bob Miller, who travels with the Orioles in media relations, I said, tomorrow in Kansas City, I'm going to get you in the forehead with a tennis ball. It's as sure as done.
You were the only one who knew what an ulnar nerve was in 1976.
Actually, I had the ulnar nerve problems in 74. Come on, let's get it right. Hit him again.
Yep, Baker twice now has been grazed by a pitch. So twice he's been hit by a pitch, but in each instance it just grazes him. Al Jackson, the Oriole pitching coach, watching Harnish begin the 3rd inning by letting the leadoff man get aboard.
I tell you what, he almost, it appeared that he takes this pitch. He tries to get out of the way, and look, he just kind of freezes there, puts that leg in, takes it. Reminds you of Reggie Jackson between 1st and 2nd back in, what, 78 in the World Series?
It's unusual for switch hitters to be hit that much. Doug Baker, a switch hitter.
Puckett hits one down the line, but foul on the count 0-1.
Well, Al set it up. He said last night's hero, and they've hit him twice. That's overdoing it a little bit, isn't it?
Oh, the reason I brought that up was because last year Gene Larkin, who is another switch hitter in the lineup tonight, set a major league record. He's a switch hitter, and he was hit 15 times last year.
And you would think a guy from Columbia would know better, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Puckett fouls it back, and the count 0-2. Kirby Puckett, a freeze frame of his locker, and there you can see Willie Mays. Picture of Mays. And I'm trying to figure out the other two.
Well, this is Willie Mays plus 10 right here, 24 to 34. Didn't Willie not start, but great minor league career here in Minneapolis on the way up to the Giants.
And he grounds it into right field for a base hit. Baker is on his way to 3rd. The throw comes through. It gets by Worthington. And down to 2nd goes Puckett. And the ball winds up out of play, and that means that Baker goes home to score to make it 3-0. And Puckett to 3rd.
It's going to be a throwing error, I'm sure, on Steve Finley. And here it is right here, but Finley deserved a better fate. Not only from Worthington at 3rd, who maybe should have moved out, seeing that he had no chance to get Baker, but also Pete Harnish, who was not backing up the play. He was kind of caught in between and really should have backed up 3rd. So a double error, or a triple error.
And with the infield back, a half-swing grounder will score a run as Cal Ripken has only one play. That's first base. And so even though Herbeck gets cheated on his swing, he winds up with an RBI. Puckett comes in to score. It's 4-0. And Herbeck, who hit 2 home runs last night, has 3 runs batted in tonight.
So you saw two consecutive bad baseball. You saw the baseball where nobody cuts the ball off. And when you're not scoring runs, there's only average 2 runs in this 7-game losing streak. How can you play with the infield back when you have a guy that can't run?
Especially the left side of the infield. You lose almost nothing because the powerful side's the right side of the infield. So if you play the right side back and the left side in, then it's still a 3-0 ball game.
Very bizarre.
I mean, Herbeck can't run. Even if he hits one through, he's going to stay at first. And you got to gamble.
Yeah. I don't care who's hitting it. It's 3-0 with a man at third. How do you have your infield back?
Well, I mean, if you got a guy that maybe hits the ball through the infield, you know he's going to steal second, you gamble. But with a slug, a snail, we're not going to see Minnesota anymore. But Herbeck at 250 doesn't run that well.
Good thing,
yeah.
Jim Palmer said that, folks. Area code 301.
And he said it about a guy who wants to be a professional wrestler after his career is over. T-Rex.
That's ripped into center field for a base hit. So Gary Gaetti with a solid single. Hit number 3 for the Twins. And Jim Dwyer coming to the plate.
I don't think it's going to take that long. He'll be up here between innings.
Yeah, right. In fact, as I turn around...
Let me clean this up. Home run hitters don't have to run fast. Hear that, Kent?
Well, okay. I mean, the key point is, you're down 3-0. How often are you going to see the infield playing back in that situation, period?
Especially the left side, because when hitters hit the ball the other way, they don't have all their power into it and don't hit it as sharply. And sure enough, Herbeck hit a weak ground ball to shortstop.
Elrod Hendricks waiting for a call.
The hand on the horn.
Right. Half swing, and he comes around, and the count no balls and 2 strikes on Dwyer. Elrod wants to be the first to know, and of course Frank Robinson would probably get somebody up if Dwyer gets on here, which he won't, because Worthington makes a leaping backhanded catch of his line drive. Gaetti retreats to first, and that's the second out of the inning, and Larkin will come to the plate.
One of the reasons that Dwyer's hitting so well, he'll just go the other way. They call him this slicer. Used to be a power hitter. He's just slicing a lot of balls to left. That's why he's hitting over 320. Nice play by Craig Worthington.
Gene Larkin now, who struck out in the second inning. 0-1. Larkin as a left-handed batter as Hendricks still waits. Larkin this way hitting 192 prior to tonight. As a right-handed batter, 347.
A natural right-handed hitter.
And he grounds it sharply to the right side, fielded by Billy Ripken, who throws him out, and the inning is over. But the Twins add 2 more in the third, and we go to the 4th inning. Hendricks still waiting for the call. 4-0 Minnesota.
ABC's Thursday Night Baseball, brought to you by the new generation of Oldsmobile. Step into the future, now at your Oldsmobile dealer.
Metrodome in Minneapolis. The Minnesota Twins, who last year became the first American League team ever to draw 3 million people. Leading Baltimore tonight, 4-0. Roy Smith got off to a very shaky start, but after loading the bases with nobody out in the first inning, he's retired 9 in a row.
And you go back to that first inning, you see the average miles per hour. Does not throw that hard, but making good pitches. Some of them a little bit off the plate. Darrell Cousins behind the plate tonight as the umpire gave them to him. Again, to get the pitches off the corner, you have to be able to establish that you can do that. When the catcher moves, that's where the ball goes.
Ripken struck out in the first inning, a disputed call, but that turned it around for Smith, who at that point was facing him with the bases loaded and nobody out. He struck Ripken out, he struck Templeton out, and got Traber. And the second and third have been 1, 2, 3 innings for him. And we mentioned earlier that Smith has been the most supported pitcher in the majors this season. The Twins averaging over 6 runs a game behind him, and tonight they've scored 4 through 3.
Now, when he beat the Orioles early in the year, he was trailing 2-0. They came up with 6 in the 6th. And he went on to win. The key is to hang around long enough so they can come up with those 6 runs. Or whatever they're going to come up with.
Two-2 pitch is grounded toward the middle and by the diving Al Newman out into center field for a base hit. Second hit for the Orioles as Ripken leads off the 4th with a single to center, and Mickey Tettleton comes to the plate.
We saw only 79 miles per hour right in the middle of the plate. The Orioles wishing this had happened back in the 1st. But no, he got the strikeout. With a 4-run lead, he challenges Ripken and leads off the inning with a base hit.
Tettleton goes after the first pitch and hits a fly ball to shallow right field. Larkin got a late start but has time to get there and makes the catch for the first out. Ripken at first with 1 down, and Jim Traber comes to the plate.
You could tell that Larkin went to Columbia. Great line. He said, I'll tell you what, when you see me in right field, and last year Gene mostly playing the role of DH or at first base, he said, you know, a lot of guys are hurt. A nice running catch last night, but feels more comfortable either as a designated hitter or right by the first base bag.
Off-speed strike to Traber, and the count is 0-1.
What a career Larkin had at Columbia, breaking most of Lou Gehrig's records. The Iron Horse of Minnesota.
And when you talk about Lou Gehrig, automatically you think of the base runner at first base in that same context, Cal Ripken. 2-1, who is the present day Iron Horse, and if he keeps it up and they don't have strikes or walkouts or what have you, in June of '95 he could eclipse Gehrig's mark. He's on that pace right now.
Tonight's 1187, which puts him 20 games behind Steve Garvey. Steve Garvey in 3rd place, Everett Scott in 2nd. Garvey played in 1,207 National League games.
Ripped into right field for a base hit, so Traber with a single, sending Ripken to 2nd. 2 on with 1 out, and Larry Sheets will come to the plate. Sheets flied out in the 2nd inning. You know, when you get up into the 1100 area, a lot of times people can't really put it into context. I think a great way to explain Ripken's streak is to think back to May 30th, 1982. Where were you on May 30th, 82? Well, that's the last time Cal Ripken wasn't in the lineup.
He's also 6'5" at about 225 to 230 pounds. Biggest shortstop, regular shortstop in the history of baseball. Excellent athlete. All-state basketball and soccer player. Gives soccer a lot of credit for his mobility as an infielder.
In there for a strike. 1-1. So Ripken, a man who has not missed a game and rarely an inning for over 7 years.
When his dad was managing, he took him out up in Toronto. Tried to break that scoreless.
That's popped up, and Newman is there, and the infield fly rule is in effect, so the out is automatic. Out number 2 as Sheets pops out, and it will bring up Worthington.
The last time we saw on Thursday Night Baseball the Baltimore Orioles, they had an attitude of we will do it. They won that game on a Jim Traber home run at the Big A in Anaheim to make it 7 wins in a row, and now we're catching them with 7 losses in a row, and you can tell it's I have to now and not I will. And that's a big difference in that attitude. It's understandable, but it's a big difference. and I have to, and that's the attitude they have now. And before, it's I will do it. World of confidence before, but not now.
And especially so after last night, because not only did they go down to their 7th loss in a row, but last night they begin the game with 4 runs in the first inning. They're 1 batter away from getting Shane Rawley removed from the game. And the next thing you know, they don't score another run and wind up losing 5-4. And here in this inning, they squander an opportunity by leaving 2 as Worthington flies softly to center. And at the end of 3 1/2, it remains Minnesota 4, Baltimore nothing. And that will really be something. The Trans-Antarctica expedition, 7-month crossing. About as long as this road trip seems to the Baltimore Orioles right now.
Not going to get any easier as they go on to Kansas City and then end with a 4-game skiing up in Boston.
I believe, and I don't know his name, I believe the fellow who is leading that expedition is from the Minneapolis area. Will Steger, we are told, and he is from Minneapolis. Well, what a daring adventure that is.
He just practices in the winter up here.
Harper in the bottom of the 4th inning. Again, folks, that was Jim Palmer.
That's right,
P-A-L-M-E-R.
And I'm a quick study, and I remember from
Tim and I we don't want to hear from you.
87, we like it here.
Ripped to left field, but Bradley is there and makes the catch. Phil gauging it and hauling in the drive off the bat of Harper for the first out in the 4th inning, and it will bring up Al Newman. Well, a lot of people like it here, as we mentioned in the Dome last year. I mean, the funny thing about this franchise is that this was a team that wasn't drawing a lot of people. There was a lot of speculation when Cal Griffith owned the team that they would move. At one point, it appeared as if Orlando was going to be a distinct possibility, a group there to purchase this team. And then they got it turned around. The team was sold. They began to market it in a different fashion, win a world title in '87, and became the first American League team ever to draw $3 million last year. And now it's one of the healthiest franchises in baseball. And it's funny when you look at the American League. Oakland, another team that not that many years ago ready to leave the Bay Area, and the way they have drawn. Toward Bradley and left again, and 2 7s in the scorebook to begin the 4th inning, and Randy Bush comes to the plate.
Yeah, in the World Championship years in '72, 3 and 4, Charlie Finley was having a tough time getting 1 million people at the Coliseum, and through yesterday, over 1.7 million drawn in Oakland this year.
A's are off tonight as you look at the other scores. Milwaukee over Detroit. Boston leads Kansas City 3-0 in the 5th inning. White Sox and Angels not underway yet. Foul back. National League, the Reds ended their 10-game losing streak today, knocking off San Diego. Eddie Murray's home run the difference as the Dodgers beat Houston. Pirates knock off the Mets at Shea, and the Giants lead Atlanta 1-0 in the 6th inning in Atlanta.
Interesting article early in the year. They said $7.9 million for Viola. Take that contract. It is less than what they, when you talk about total revenues, than Lyman Bostock would have signed, or Carew, or even Larry Heisel.
Bush gone on strikes, and that's the 2nd strikeout for Harnish. Twins gone in the 4th. Still 4-0 Minnesota. We go to the 5th after this message and news headlines from our ABC stations. 5th inning in Minneapolis. Al Michaels, Jim Palmer, Tim McCarver with you. Thursday night baseball. The Twins on top 4-0 as we go to the 5th. Orioles having lost 7 straight on top in the American League East, still low by 4.5 over Toronto and Cleveland. And Ripken hits one through the middle for a base hit. So the number 9 hitter leads off with a single to center field, and it will bring up Brady Anderson. Reminder, Saturday on ABC's Wide World of Sports, you will see the replay of the Mike Tyson, Carl the Truth Williams heavyweight fight from Atlantic City. That's taking place over the weekend. Tyson and Evander Holyfield will both be interviewed as well. And a figure skating exhibition, the Tour of Champions. Katarina Witt, Brian Boitano, and others at 4:30 Eastern and Pacific this Saturday on Wide World. Anderson pops it up, and Gaetti makes the catch, and there's one gone here in the 5th inning.
And also a reminder to be on time for the Tyson and Williams fight, because if you're not, you'll miss it.
Yep. 93 seconds worth.
Yeah, that was the big talk in the Oriole locker room yesterday. Harney said he could go 93 seconds with Tyson. I said, yeah, only if he didn't know that he had to knock you out in those 93 seconds.
The only guy who might be able to go 93 seconds with Tyson is Carl Lewis.
In a bigger ring.
Yeah, right. Phil Bradley takes low for a ball on the count, 1-0. Roy Smith, and Jim Palmer mentioned it earlier, a fly ball pitcher for the most part. And
Really
tonight, for the most part.
Yeah, using his curveball since the 1st inning. There's another one. 1-0. I mean, so he's thrown it behind in the count. Thrown a couple of 2-1, 2 balls, 1 strike curveballs, and gotten them over. So it makes that 79-mile-per-hour fastball look that much faster. You really cannot sit on one particular pitch.
Breaking pitch, 1-2.
One thing that it tells you about fly ball pitchers is that in double play situations, don't look for the ground ball double play. And sure enough, Smith has only thrown 4 ground ball double plays in those types of situations this year.
And a pop-up in the air down the line. Going to be a tough play for Newman and Herbeck makes the catch with his back to the plate. So Ken Herbeck, and that's a particularly tough play because you're here at the Dome too and looking up into the Teflon.
You know, when they talk about Herbeck, they always say, hey, this guy's got great hand and he's got a lot of agility for a big guy. One of the best fielding first baseman in the American League, especially right-handed fielding first baseman. Mattingly, of course, left-handed. Fred McGriff, all fielding with the opposite hand.
Steve Finley now takes a strike with 2 out. Billy Ripken at first base in the 5th inning.
In fact, went on the disabled list for 6 weeks because of a dive in which he separated his shoulder.
To left field, and moving over toward the line is Randy Bush to make the catch, and the Orioles are done in the 5th. At the end of 4.5, it remains Twins 4, Orioles nothing. Well, here is Doug Baker, who's had a rather unheralded, nondescript career. The first time up tonight, he was hit by a pitch. The second time up, he was hit by a pitch. So now he'll try to put his name, he'll try to etch his name in the record book along with 25 others who've been hit 3 times in a game. I say he'll try in a very loose sense. Fouled back. By the way, Craig Cusick, the last man to have that happen to him, hit 3 times in the game in '75, was playing with the Twins that year.
Yeah, Doug coming up in the Tiger organization, back up to Alan Trammell. The only time he ever played is when Trammell got hurt. As a matter of fact, I walked in with him and he said, I'm checked out of the hotel. I said, you're staying in a hotel? He said, hey, I got sent out between games of a doubleheader. I said, no. He said, and then the next year, I got pulled off the bus in spring training along with Mike Laga, and I got sent out again when they told me, Sparky told me I had the club made. This guy's a survivor.
Hits it in the air to right field. And Finley makes the catch for the out. So Baker is gone. Yeah, Baker was really low-key in it last night because they were gathered around his locker as he delivered the game-winning hit in the 9th inning. But he said, hey, I gotta stay on an even keel here. I don't know how much longer I can wear this uniform. And of course, one of the reasons he is in the lineup tonight is the fact that Greg Gagne has been bothered by a sore back. He's the regular shortstop. As Puckett hits one down the line foul, and Al Newman playing second base in the absence of Wally Backman, acquired during the offseason from the Mets. and recuperating from a shoulder problem.
From a left shoulder problem. And it seems to be common knowledge here that it's his right shoulder. I mean, it was reported that it was his right shoulder for a number of weeks here, but it's his left shoulder that's bothering him.
Puckett with his second hit, a single to right here in the 5th inning, with Kent Herbeck coming to the plate. Puckett, meanwhile, over the last 5 seasons, and that's projected for 1989. At this pace, he'd wind up with 218, so he'd average better than 200 hits a year, and in 5 consecutive seasons. Those are the names of the guys who would have more than Puckett were he to reach that projection. Sisler and Klein and Terry, as Herbeck swings and misses. Rogers Hornsby is on that list, so that's some pretty good company for Kirby Puckett.
It's almost like he's changed his stroke to try to get more hits, and that's hard to say when he already had 234 to try to catch Wade Boggs. Not hitting as many home runs, swinging down on the ball.
Herbeck lifts it to center field, and a little deeper than Anderson initially thought. Puckett tags at first, but holds on as the throw comes back in, and there are 2 gone now with Gaetti coming to the plate. And Tim, you were mentioning there's some mysteriousness surrounding which of Backman's shoulders is involved, and also, you know, in the paper the other day, there's a story about Backman may be playing in a couple of days. Then you come into town and you hear that it's a career-threatening injury. I mean, there seems to be a lot of mystery as to when Wally's going to come back. And
I was talking to Wally before the game, and it is by no means a career-threatening injury, and it's very important for people to know that. As Wally explained to me, he could be a free agent this winter. And not only it's his left shoulder, he's a right-handed thrower, and there's a big difference in having a left shoulder injury if you're a right-handed thrower than a right shoulder injury, because your market value would go way down if you can't throw. But he should be ready by the next time the Twins come home. That's what Wally told me before the game this evening.
Strike on the appeal, says Vic Voltaggio at first.
That reminds you of the first inning. Ripken's check swing. Vic with a call down at first. Yeah, also Wally said they've been treating the wrong area, so it's kind of made it a little bit difficult to get well. I tell you, a guy as intense as Wally, you know, the Twins really are not contending in 12 games back from the loss column. Like to be playing. Not the type of guy, as you look at Pete Harnisch, that likes to sit on the bench. You do the Met games most of the time, Tim. You think the Mets miss the intensity of a Wally Backman?
Yes, I do. I think any team would. I think the Mets miss Kevin Mitchell, too. Not only his intensity, but his production. Mitchell, a member of the '86 Mets world champions.
Puckett got a good jump and steals second. So Kirby stealing that one on Harnisch.
But still, remember we talked earlier about Cal Ripken staying on the bag. Watch where Billy Ripken takes this throw. It appears that, no, he's on the bag too. So it runs in the family. So both of them actually accepting the throw in the proper position. You get a lot of middle infielders taking that throw up in front of the bag and bringing it back, and that's simply the improper way, unless the throw's offline, the improper way to receive the throw from the catcher. Most of the plays down there are bang bang anyway. So that extra yard where you have to catch the ball out in front and bring it back, there's no way that that tag can get there quicker than the throw can if the throw's on line.
Steal number 7 for Kirby Puckett, who's at second base with 2 down. And the 1-2 to Gaetti is grounded wide of third. It's a fair ball, and Worthington's throw gets him. So Gary Gaetti, who's taken a few hits away from opponents in a similar fashion, knows what it's like from the other end. 4-0 Minnesota, end of 5. Back after this word for our ABC stations. Four 4-0 Minnesota as we go to the 6th inning. Talk about turnabout being fair play. Here's Gaetti robbed of a base hit by Worthington to end the 5th inning. we come back to live action. Ripken at the plate to lead off, and in a moment we'll show you what took place last night when it was Worthington who had a base hit taken away on a tremendous play by Gary Gaetti. Ripken, Tettleton, and Traber in the 6th inning. 4-0 Minnesota. Twins with 2 in the 1st and 2 more in the 3rd. Shallow left field. Baker going out, crossing the line into foul ground. 1 out. And here was Worthington at the plate last night, and look at this play by Gary Gaetti. And among those in attendance here last night, calling the game and seated next to Jim Palmer, was Brooks Robinson, who could really appreciate that one.
Yeah, he taught him how to do that.
1970 World Series when Lee May hit the ball to Brooksy's right. One of the truly great plays in the history of the game in postseason.
And then all the diving stops off the guy that one of the guys that just went into the Hall of Fame, Johnny Bench. Sometimes you forget this, realize how long a throw that is on AstroTurf, playing that far behind the base.
One ball, 2 strikes, the count on Tettleton. 1 out, bases empty in the 6th inning. And down goes Mickey. Four strikeouts for Roy Smith. 2 down. Tom Kelly, who guided the Twins to their world championship in 1987. That's one of those things that, you know, you're a rookie manager and you really can't savor it until it's well after the fact. But we were talking about it before the game tonight. 1-0 the count.
And one of the most memorable things about that, Al, you remember Tom Kelly was sitting on the bench and allowed his team to celebrate and didn't even go out there. He said this is their celebration. And Tom sat on the bench. It was really a nice thing to see, but that's really the way he goes about his job.
It's grounded sharply to the right side, and Newman is there to field it and throw him out. So the Orioles gone quietly in order in the 6th. And it's still 4-0 Minnesota at the end of 5 1/2. Subject of Tom Kelly guiding the Twins to the world title 2 years ago, I spoke with him before the game. Speaking of 87, Tom, sometimes you can only appreciate and savor things after they've happened and you're away and you can look back. So it's been almost 2 years right now. When you look back upon that season, what sort of thoughts do you have?
Well, it's sort of a euphoric type thing, maybe a once-in-a-lifetime type thing. We don't know that. And it always brings a smile to my face, a little chill in my bones, and I always end up smiling and maybe laughing a little bit that we were the best.
There's an old horse racing expression, horses for courses, and Tom Kelly's owned some race horses in his time, and boy, if ever a manager was made for a team, it was Kelly and the Twins in 87. As Dwyer takes outside here in the bottom of the 6th inning, 1-0. Dwyer, Larkin, and Harper.
What's so great about postseason play? I mean, not probably the best team that year. They only had Blyleven and Viola. Cardinals with Jack Clark out. Each win 3 games in their home ballparks, and then when it comes down to it, the best home record in baseball right here in the Metrodome, they win in 7. And we get to be here
in a World Series in which every game was won by the home team. And the irony is, and there it is, the symbol of their title in 87, they won more games in 88 than they did in 87, but barely in the race because of the Oakland A's. It's sharply, and that one is down the right field line and off the glove of Traber and into the corner. And on his way into second is Dwyer. So Traber has it deflect off his glove and down the line. And Dwyer at second base to start things in the bottom of the 6th inning.
And a double is given to Jim Dwyer. It could have been an error, but it would have been a tough error. And had it been charged an error, it would have been Traber's first of the year. His counterpart, Randy Milligan, only has committed one. So how about that for a platoon operation? One error between the two of them.
And the Orioles have committed the fewest errors in the majors, which is one reason they're on top. A big reason. Larkin looks at a strike, 0-1.
But they played very shoddy defense over this 7-game losing streak.
When you look,
26 errors in their last 31 games, as a matter of fact.
When you look at it, it's really been a collapse of several departments, pitching and hitting as well as defense for the
Base
Orioles.
running, getting picked off. Traber getting picked off, down by 1 run. Runners first and third, trying to start Traber, who doesn't run particularly well. Welch does that third base pickoff move and catches him. Next guy hits a fly ball. Instead of scoring a run, you're out of the inning. So it's been just everything going wrong at the wrong time, and they just keep losing.
Just off the plate, 1 ball and 2 strikes on Larkin.
When you go back and look at this 89 season, they all say the biggest thing was, hey, we won opening day. We took that specter of 21 straight losses last year, got it out of the way. Well, it's coming back a little bit. They are playing like they did during that 21-game loss scheme last year.
They've dropped 7 straight and trail here 4-0 in the 6th inning. The Twins, meanwhile, out of it in the West, 12 games back in 5th place, 12 back of California. Grounded to Billy Ripken, and that will advance the runner as Larkin is retired at first. Dwyer moves to third, and with 1 out, it will bring up Brian Harper. Harper would have gone down in history as the guy who had the game-winning hit in a clinching game of the World Series. Brian with the Cardinals, you'll recall, in '85. They lead the series 3-2 against Kansas City. No score, 8th inning, game 6. Harper singles to drive in the game's first run, and that was the night that they had the controversial Don Dinkinger call at first base. Royals get 2 in the bottom of the 9th inning to win it 2-1, and the next night it's Saberhagen and the Royals winning 11-0 and winning the World Series. Big play right here is Pendleton for the moment saves a run, blocking one in the dirt.
You had the right hitter at the plate. Harper being up over 190 times, only struck out 8 times. So a contact hitter, infield in, trying to add a run. Fly ball will do it, at least a deep one.
And he rips one into left field for a base hit. So Harper with a solid single. Dwyer comes in to score, and Minnesota leads it by a score of 5-0. Harper, who shares the catching duties with Tim Lardner, has now driven in his 31st run, and finally the call. And if ever a guy was ready to accept a collect call, it's Elrod Hendricks.
He had his hand on the phone, and he has for the last 3 innings.
Mark Thurman gets up to start throwing in the bullpen. Fly ball to right field is caught by Finley for the 2nd out as Harper gets back to first. So Thurman throwing in the pen with 2 down now, and Bush at the plate. So Harper, we mentioned, he catches certain pitchers is the way Tom Kelly has aligned his platoon situation this year. Tim Lardner, for the most part, you look at Randy Bush during the Reagan and Bush administrations, what he has hit. And he grounds it to the right side and through for a base hit. Harper pulls in at 2nd. So 3 hits in the inning, 2 on with 2 out. And Doug Baker will be coming to the plate, as Harnish has now yielded a total of 7 hits.
We talk so much about how difficult it is to pitch, how maybe easy it is to hit sometimes. When you have a guy on first, just pull the ball, especially on the turf. That's what Randy Bush does. Just drives it on the ground into right field.
Baker. Twice hit by a pitch and then fly to right. Two and oh.
We talked about Harnish, who very hyper, uptight guy in a way. You really have to be a relaxed type person to throw a good fastball with good movement. It's like hitting a golf ball. Get it out on your fingertips. Use your wrist. And also allow the upper part of your body to come forward. You have to have a soft left leg to get through in your delivery. And Pete at 22 still struggling to gain that experience and that type of mechanical know-how to be a successful pitcher.
That's why there's a big difference between being tense and being intense. There are a lot of young players that are too tense. They don't allow their abilities to flow.
Oh, look at this right here.
Yep.
Now, usually you change the ball in your glove. If you did it right there, the first base coach could see it. Pretty good idea of what kind of personality he has. Great arm, he yet hasn't been able to channel that at a major league level.
So the walk to Baker, the bases are loaded, and Kirby Puckett. And you saw Frank Robinson telling Tettleton to go out to the mound and buy some time here. Thurman throwing in the bullpen, and Puckett coming to the plate.
And I think the pitching coach of the Orioles went for the head fake. I think Al Jackson thought Frank meant for him to go out to talk to Harnish. And actually, Frank was talking to Tettleton. We'll see if he makes a move right here. He'll be in to pitch to Herbeck if Puckett gets on. Here's the replay of Frank. Nope, he's going to take him out right now.
Then Jackson starts out. Robbie says, oh, no. Because I'm going to go get him. All Robinson was doing was telling Tettleton to go to the mound so that Thurman could get in some extra throwing in the bullpen. And so Frank will bring in the lefty to face the right-hand batting Puckett with the bases loaded and 2 out in the 6th inning. And the Twins on top 5-0.
NBC's Thursday Night Baseball, brought to you by Anheuser-Busch. We brew our fine quality beers to be enjoyed responsibly. Remember, know when to say when.
5-0 Minnesota with Mark Thurman coming into pitch for the Baltimore Orioles. And he will be facing Kirby Puckett, who has 2 hits tonight. And oddly, in his scintillating career, Puckett has never hit a grand slam.
What Thurman does best is come in and keep runners that are on base from scoring. 50 out of 60 times in his career with the Orioles. This year, 22 out of 28 runners that have been on base he's retired or have really failed to score. So Mark, who's a sinker ball, a little bit of screwball, which I guess is maybe one of the reasons that Frank Robinson did not have a right-hander up. Well, he'll come on to face Puckett, who wears out just about anybody this year.
Well, you pitched on a staff with Mike Cuellar, and they used to say the best way to, and Frank Robinson played on that ball club, the best way to beat Cuellar was stock your lineup with left-handed hitters to take away the screwball. So this matchup is not nearly as devastating if Thurman were not to feature the screwball.
Well, the odds aren't good, though. You know, I mean,
well,
I understand
exactly. Great hitter, no question about it. But I'm saying this matchup is not as bad as it may appear with Herbeck on deck facing the lefty, and because of Thurman's screwball.
Bases loaded, 2 out in the 6th inning. Puckett already with his 45th multiple hit game of the season.
So tough to defense, too. I mean, we've seen him hit it over the first base bag. He can hit it down the left field line, up the gaps, home runs. They're playing him around to right center. Thurman better down in the strike zone.
And he's behind 2-0.
This certainly enhances your chance of your first grand slam, especially at 2-0. One of the reasons probably that graphic is that he doesn't wait around very much. You get it close, he'll swing at it.
Ball 3-0 on Puckett. I don't think there's any take sign with Kirby Puckett in this situation.
Well, they've already hit twice 3-0 tonight.
Randy Bush and Ken Herbeck. Herbeck driving in 2 runs in the first inning on a 3-0 count.
Thurman deals 3-0, and that's in there for a strike. 3-1.
I think if you're playing the count and you're Anderson in center, I'd be 4 steps into left center right now. Puckett's a line-to-line guy, but when he's ahead in the count, he's more apt to pull the ball. And Anderson yet stays toward right center.
And that's grounded to the middle, base hit. Harper comes in to score. So does Bush. Puckett has 3 hits in the game, and the Twins break it open, 7-0.
Well, the key to hitting on the turf is hit the ball hard. Puckett's done it 3 times. Ball not hit hard. Mark Thurman might have been able to have it. And it was all the great hitters, and I'd put him right up there with the great hitters. You saw the graphics earlier. He puts the fat part of the bat on the fat part of the ball, often.
Now Herbeck at the plate. And the count 1-0. It's 7-0, Minnesota. 7 runs, 8 hits for the Twins. No runs, 4 hits, and 1 error for the Orioles. Baker at second, Puckett at first. Herbeck, who's already driven in 3 runs tonight, the 8th man to bat in the inning, and takes high. Again, the Orioles coming into town and going out of town right now with a 7-game losing streak and down 7-0. Minnesota heads for Detroit. Minnesota heads for Detroit, and Baltimore heads for Kansas City. And the other big story in regard to tonight's game is, where does Frank Viola head? As Herbeck takes low, and the count 3-0.
One of the big topics after they lost their 5th straight game, talking about the Orioles, was they were in all 4. They lost 5-2, 3-2, 3-1, and 3-2 in Oakland. But lately, they've been blowouts. And last night, they just blew a game. They had a 4-0 lead in. So not playing the type of baseball they have played all year long.
And Herbeck draws the walk. And Gary Gaetti will become the 9th man to hit in the inning. And that's become an all too familiar pose in the Oriole dugout. An all too familiar look on the face of Frank Robinson.
I'm reminded of the way a particular undertaker used to sign his letters. He'd sign it, "Eventually yours." And Frank Robinson and the Orioles hope that that's not the message in the way they're signing the messages that they're sending to the rest of the American League East.
And meanwhile, Hendricks just keeps on waiting for that message in the bullpen.
He's ready to pick it up on the ting.
Yeah. Jackson will go to the mound. Al Jackson, the Oriole pitching coach. Nothing shaking in the Baltimore bullpen at the moment.
You talk about the rest of the American League East, still not another team playing over 500 baseball. Well, what the Orioles are doing is getting back down close to 500 themselves. Before this losing streak, they were 15 games over. They won 15 more than they've lost. Now it's 8. And it appears after tonight it'll only be 7. What you do is you give the other teams hope. And they don't even have to play well. Like you said, it doesn't look like any team will win 90 games.
Gary Gaetti in the dirt, blocked by Tettleton to prevent a run, at least for the moment. Baker has to hold at third. Bases loaded with Doug Baker at third. Herbie Puckett is at second. Ken Herbeck at first. 2 out, 6th inning, 3 runs in the inning for Minnesota, and they lead 7-0. And Thurman a pitch away from walking in a run. 3-0. Three and one. And Gaetti walks to force in a run. Baker touches the plate to make it 8-0. The bases remain loaded, and Jim Dwyer, who began the inning with a leadoff double, comes to the plate. And as Dwyer comes to the plate, Tom Kelly brings him back to the dugout, and he figures, well, as long as Robinson has nobody up in the bullpen, and he can't counter the move.
Most likely Carmen Castillo.
And that's who it will be, who wants to be known, by the way, as Carmelo. After all of those years at Cleveland, having the best year of his career, and he wants it to be known that his name is Carmelo from now on.
Well, look what it's done for Jose Uribe.
Right.
Changed his name from Jose Gonzalez years ago, and now Roger Craig says he's the finest fielding shortstop in the National League.
Right, exactly.
Boy, that is saying something.
But is he?
But is he? Well, Roger Craig said that, and that's because he's his manager, and it's good. It's good for managers.
That'll get a guy to play.
Oh, yeah, it's good for managers to say that about his own players. That's smart. I'll tell you, he's a fine shortstop and much underrated. You think of shortstops in the National League, you think of Ozzie Smith automatically.
Meanwhile, Gaetti's going to come out. As a matter of fact, Gary had missed a couple of games over the weekend in Milwaukee.
Victor Rodriguez used to be in the Oriole. Played 8 years in the Oriole minor league system. Goes into pinch run.
And he will stay in the game at third base. In fact, when Rodriguez came up, he was up briefly in 1984 with the Orioles and fared very well. Meanwhile, Castillo hits for Dwyer, and he's been poisoned to left-handers. To left center field, and Anderson is there and makes the catch, and the side is retired. But 10 men come to the plate. Twins break it wide open, score 4 in the 6th. Lead 8-0 as we go to the 7th, and we'll return to Minneapolis after this message and news headlines from our ABC stations. Tonight, live television takes on a whole new meaning with Diane Sawyer and Sam Donaldson in the premiere of Prime Time Live. That's next Thursday at 10 Eastern and 9 Central here on ABC. New third baseman for the Minnesota Twins will be Victor Rodriguez, who went into pinch run for Gary Gaetti, so he stays in the game as we go to the 7th inning. Larry Sheets to lead things off, and Roy Smith leading 8-0. Sheets hits one into left center field. That's a base hit, so Larry 0 for 2 tonight. Finds the third time the charm as he singles to left to start the top of the 7th inning, and it will bring up Worthington. And again, it goes back to what we mentioned already a couple of times, the fact that Smith coming into the game, the most supported pitcher in the majors, 6.12 runs per game scored back of him. And tonight the Twins have exceeded even that lofty average.
Only 2 complete games with all those runs, so you would have liked, I suppose, if you're the opposition, as you look at the run support, stay close. The Orioles haven't been able to do that. Makes it that much easier for Tom Kelly and Roy Smith and the bullpen.
2-0 the count. In there, Smith, an interesting case in that he's never spent a full year in the majors, though he has spent parts of the prior 5 seasons in the big leagues, with Cleveland for 2 years and Minnesota for 3. Has never pitched a major league shutout, and that still might be in effect as that one is out of there. So much for Roy Smith and the first major league shutout. No sooner do you begin to bring it up than Worthington hits one out, his 8th home run of the season, and that makes it 8-2. And activity in the Minnesota bullpen as Gary Wayne begins to throw.
Another look at Craig Worthington, last year's MVP in the International League. He had 16 there. His average has come up all the way from 200 over 240, just about 245 now. He struggled in the field, though, as of late, with 13 errors.
Billy Ripken pops it up, and Rodriguez is there, but he's called off by Baker, and the shortstop makes the catch. 1 gone.
That's the kind of interesting thing to me about the Orioles. They had 6 rookies, the youngest club they've had since 1977. I think all of them felt, hey, we'll come up here, get our feet on the ground, there won't be any pressure, and all of a sudden everybody's saying, hey, this team, can they do it all year long? Frank Robinson says, yeah, we'll do it 1 game at a time. Well, how can you do it 1 game at a time when everybody's saying you think they're going to make the playoffs? Hard to focus on the next game. May in the long run be the best thing that they have some adversity in the middle of the season. I don't know about 8 or 9 or 10 losses, but maybe carrying a little bit too far. But I'll tell you what, this may get them back into that single game syndrome. They've just been outplayed, though, everywhere they've gone over the last 8 days.
Two and 1 the count. At bats by rookies, Seattle with nearly 1,000. Innings by rookies, as you saw on the right-hand portion of it. The Orioles tops in that department. Rodriguez comes over and had room, but can't make the catch.
Unfortunate accident up in, I don't know if it happened in Chicago or Seattle, but Ken Griffey Jr. breaking his hand, slipping in the bathroom. A chance to be possibly Rookie of the Year. Look at Victor as he goes over.
Rodriguez really not close to where Griffey, however, broke his
No.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you went
Well, not that far. You just go right up the runway, make a right, and you're in the bathroom. You think they really bought it? How'd you break your hand? Well, I slipped in the bathroom.
Slept in the shower.
It's like saying your ulnar
out
nerve.
of the shower.
Yeah, it's like saying your ulnar nerve hurts.
2-2 to Anderson. His line to center field. Puckett comes on and makes the catch. So 2 gone in the 7th inning with Minnesota on top 8-2. And Bradley is the batter. Let's recall that graphic and take another look at it. In terms of the rookies, Seattle, and then the Cubs, of course, Smith and Walton accounting for many of those at-bats. And Baltimore is 3rd, and innings pitched by rookies. Baltimore, the White Sox young staff, and then Texas. And that encompasses both leagues.
And where would the Orioles be without Greg Olson, their rookie short man? The big question, or at least one of them here. Who would be the short man? He's saved 16 games. Just a year out of Auburn University.
Bradley grounds it foul. And of course the word around the Orioles is with the possible recall of Schilling. You're going to get several more innings out of a rookie.
Yeah, Kurt Schilling is part of that Boddicker trade you talked about earlier, along with Brady Anderson. Played to Double-A last year, is over 11 wins at Triple-A. Speculation he was going to come up and pitch on Saturday. And Anderson might either be disabled with that bad back or sent down. Brady playing tonight, and Schilling's not going to pitch apparently.
Well, you hear about a lot of corporations nowadays who are restructuring, and that's really what the Orioles did this winter. They cut their salary in half, almost $200,000 a man, $234,000 average per player is the lowest in the American League. And I guess you restructure a corporation. From what I know about that end of business, you restructure, one of the reasons, to prevent takeovers.
Okay. Into left field for a base hit. Off the bat of Bradley. Today's business report is being brought to you by...
I'm trying to draw some sort of painful analogy if the Orioles are taken over, because they've got, you know, a dogfight for second place, only 2.5 games separating the second and sixth place team. And the Red Sox are winning tonight, beating Kansas City. Milwaukee's already won. So for a young team, you can sure, you know, almost feel the heat that's being put on these young players. For the majority of them, they've never been through it before.
Meanwhile, Tom Kelly goes to the mound. And appears to be thanking Mr. Smith for his 6 2/3 innings of work, and that's exactly what's happening. Gary Wayne comes in to pitch in the 7th inning. With 2 out and a man on, 8-2. Minnesota. Back we come after this word from our ABC stations. The Twins bring Gary Wayne, the lefty, in, and thus Mike Devereaux comes off the bench to pinch hit for Finley here in the 7th inning. Bradley at first base, and Wayne's pitch is a strike. Wayne, a rookie, with one of the oddest motions I have ever seen, and we'll get Jim Palmer to analyze it. He almost unfolds.
Well, he does, but very deceptive. Good breaking ball. We already saw the fastball. Going a lot harder tonight than he did the other night. There's that good curveball. Now, what you see is the uniform. You don't really see his arm, and all of a sudden, here comes the ball. Really hides it well.
You see the uniform in a less than uniform delivery,
yeah.
Right? He's a stiff armor.
Right. The body, and then where's the ball? That's what you're looking for at a hitter, trying to find that little window where the pitcher releases the ball from.
That's out of play, and the count remains 0-2.
You know, you talked earlier about they won a world championship in '87, only won 85 games, beating the Cardinals. Last year, 91 wins, and how are they going to try to catch Oakland? Upgrade their pitching. Now, they did lose Blyleven, but they thought that Smith would be a little bit better. If this might get a 6th win. And also Wayne, drafted from Montreal in the Major League draft.
And called strike 3. So Devereaux pinch hitting, down on strikes. The Orioles get 2 in the 7th on the Worthington homer, and after 6.5, it's 8-2 Twins. Expected to take 7 months, the Trans-Antarctica expedition, so it'll end in February or March of 1990, and it all begins. You'll see it this Sunday at 7 Eastern and Pacific and 6 Central.
That's about the length of a baseball season, right? From spring training till the World Series. Not going to be the same weather there, however.
It's only about, I think, half of the NBA season, though. Mike Devereaux. The NBA starts up, what, next month? Or in early September, training camp.
Yeah, the Timberwolves, new franchise here. Their first exhibition game last night.
That's what I was getting to.
Yeah, oh, did you? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. You picked right up. Perfect.
Take the Timberwolves on the expedition.
Yeah.
They only lost by 4.
In fact, I stayed right across the street. I guess it's called the Hemisphere. Their new arena they're trying to get up by early November. They better hurry.
Well, you can always play outside for a while.
Yeah. We already described the Antarctic type weather they have here.
Well,
sorry, in fact, I had a former writer from Baltimore that came here, wrote for one of the papers, said, tell you what, it does get cold here, but people prepare for it, have a lot of fun with it. It's not exactly Brentwood.
Was today.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking January.
Swing and a miss. So the Timberwolves, the NBA franchise. Well, when you think about this city and then the NBA, you go back to the Minneapolis Lakers. George Mikan, Pollard, before the team moved to Los Angeles in the late 50s. And the Vikings getting ready to start training camp. In fact, the next time we come back here, we'll be here for a preseason Monday night football game in August, and then Christmas night there will be a Monday night football game here as the Cincinnati Bengals wrap up the regular NFL season against the Vikings.
Bo Jackson going on the disabled list, quadricep pull.
We cover it all here, folks.
Oh yeah, we'll get the chance to see with the Yankees early in the year. Another guy that may be playing NFL football, Deion Sanders.
He may be doing a lot of things to hear Deion sing it.
Prime time.
Neon Deion. I mean, really, when you think about it, what has he done to be as brash as he is? Has he signed with the Atlanta Falcons yet?
Well, he's intercepted a few passes at Florida State as Larkin starts the bottom of the 7th with a base hit.
All-American in college. There's a big difference in making that jump from college to professional ball. He has not signed with the Atlanta Falcons, we understand. Signed with the Yankees.
Came up with them for a while and is back now, at Columbus?
And at Columbus, he was fined twice for not running balls out, fined once for missing a team meeting, and fined once for missing a bus. That's not a way to endear yourself to George Steinbrenner and the traditional Yankee organization, would you say?
It makes for good copy, though. Writers love him.
Well, if you can't hit, you might as well keep your name in the lineup, or out in front of the public some way, right? Struggling at that level. You get about 140 with the Yankees, but a good all-around athlete. I mean, another has those good innate skills.
He does indeed, and I'll tell you, it shows you how difficult it is for a guy like Bo Jackson to step in and do the things that he's done, both from college football to the Raiders and college baseball to the Kansas City Royals. It is not that easy. It's really quite remarkable what Bo Jackson has done. Matter of fact, I think Bo had some sage advice for Deion, didn't he? Back about a month and a half ago.
What was that?
When he told him something to the effect of, you got to do it first and then talk.
I'm sure that's what the NFL will have to say about it too, even if he does eventually sign with the Falcons.
That's hitting to right field for a base hit. So Harper has his second hit, and Larkin is on his way to third, and he's in there as Ripken cuts the throw off. So a couple of singles to start the bottom of the 7th inning. And Greg Gagne will hit for Al Newman against the left-hander Mark Thurman. Gagne, the regular shortstop, been bothered with back spasms the past couple of days, and that's why he has been out of the starting lineup. He did appear last night as a pinch runner and comes up here to pinch hit in the bottom of the 7th inning. So Larkin at third, Harper at first, nobody out. Bottom of the 7th inning, 8-2 Minnesota. And that's grounded off the glove of Traber, and that could very well be his first error of the season. And out into right center field as Larkin comes in to score. to make it 9-2. So earlier on Dwyer's grounder off his glove, it was sharply hit to the extent that the official score ruled it a double. But this time he'll be charged with an error in all likelihood.
Sure, if you ask Jim, he'll say, hey, I should have caught the ball. It gets to you a little bit quicker on turf. Comes up right there. Also, when you're down, now 9-2, tougher to concentrate. You want the game to end, unless you're going to come back and score a quick 9 in the 8th and 9th innings. Mine somewhere else, maybe on that plane to Kansas City.
Yeah, that's what you're seeing with the Orioles over the last 8 games is really what was their strength in the first half has now all of a sudden become their weakness. 27 errors now in their last 32 ball games.
John Moses hitting for Bush. Traber was charged with the error. 9-2 Minnesota. Check swing foul. And the count 1-1.
When you're scoring a lot of runs, you can make an occasional error. But when you stop hitting, if you go back before the 8-game losing streak, they were leading the American League in runs scored. And now over this, it's actually 7 in tonight's ball game, only averaged 2 runs a game. Pitching has gone sour, so you just can't afford to play poor defense. That's been one thing they've done consistently all year until lately, the last month.
2-1 the count. Again, Milwaukee beats Detroit today. In the 7th at Fenway, Boston leads Kansas City 6-2. National League, Reds win, Dodgers win, Pirates win, and Atlanta routs the Giants 10-1. In that Braves-Giants game, remember Dale Murphy with that long stretch without hitting a home run earlier this season. Tonight he wound up hitting 2 in 1 inning.
Didn't he hit 1 yesterday or the day before? So that's at least 3 this week. Be another trade rumor rekindled, being offered around.
Offered to the Mets in spring training, as a matter of fact.
Chopper, and off the glove of Worthington, and the bases are loaded. Moses hitting the high hopper to third. And we'll see how they scored as the bases are loaded with nobody out, and Baker comes to the plate.
Well, the Twins back in '87, they won 56 games here in the Metrodome. And I'll tell you what, if you come in here, it's tough to see the fly balls. The balls on the ground take different bounces. They play different depths, and that ball just goes over a leaping Craig Worthington. Craig only about 5'10 and a half. Different pace to the game on turf.
They give him an infield single, and the pitch is a strike to Baker, and the count is 0-1. So Harper is at third, Gagne at second, and Moses now at first with nobody out. Baker batting right-handed for the first time tonight. 1-1.
I think a third baseman is the one most affected by playing on the artificial surface, because now third basemen have to play a lot deeper, even though Worthington's in because of a double play situation. But you've got to have strong arm third basemen that are wide ranging types of third basemen now, as opposed to natural grass.
Grounded to Ripken. He goes to his brother for the out at second, and that's all they get. And the Twins get another run as Harper crosses the plate on the force play. And it makes it 10-2.
We mentioned Brooks Robinson earlier, and Jim, you played with Brooks for so many years. He played a shallow third base, but it's doubtful that he would have been able to play a shallow third base on artificial surface.
Well, you know, Brooks had a more than adequate arm, but not a great arm, not a Mike Schmidt arm.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about that long throw. I mean, that is a long way. About as long as a shortstop's throw from the deep hole. The only difference, of course, is that shortstop has to maybe make the throw a little quicker. Doesn't get to the ball as quickly.
Puckett takes low, ball 1. And Kirby hits a chopper to Ripken. He goes to Billy for one and back to first for a double play. So Puckett and the Twins gone in the 7th, but they pick up 2 more, and on to the 8th we go with Minnesota leading Baltimore 10-2. Tim Laudner takes over at first base. We go to the 8th inning, and other changes as well for the Minnesota Twins, with Ripken leading things off. Doug Baker moves from short to second. Greg Gagne, who pinch hit for Newman, stays in the game and goes to shortstop. And John Moses, who pinch hit for Bush, takes Randy's spot in left field. Cal Ripken leading off in the 8th, 10-2 Minnesota. Gary Wayne with a fastball for a strike. And the count 2-1. Twins on the verge of sweeping this series, and they head to Detroit for a 4-game series over the weekend. Boston leads Kansas City 7-2 in the 8th. Royals fly home after the game, and Baltimore flies to Kansas City after the game to begin a series at Royal Stadium tomorrow night. The 3-2 pitch is grounded wide of third, and Rodriguez is there to throw him out. Looks like a Gaetti imitation.
Yeah, Victor, who came up as a second baseman. Good fielding and hitting. Line drive hitter. Saw him the other night just slap a single to right. Remind me of seeing him big league camp back in the early 80s. Playing deep, as Tim McCarver told you. Got to be rangy. He said, a former second baseman. And when you get to the ball that quickly, all you have to do is make an accurate throw, and he did.
Tettleton takes a strike. 1 out in the 8th inning. Good fastball. 0-2.
Really a steal at $50,000, and that's how they got him out of the Expo, as if the Expos didn't have enough pitching. Draft him for $50,000 off the Major League roster, or actually the AAA roster. You have to keep him in the big leagues all year long, or you give him back to that other team for $25,000 unless you can work out a deal. The Twins have kept Wayne. Orioles did the same thing with Mike Smith, worked out a deal where they sent him out, and he's back up in the big leagues now. So
Texas Mike Smith as opposed to
well,
Mississippi.
Mississippi got traded.
I guess the most heralded of those types of deals, George Bell with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yep.
Major League draft for $50,000. You think he's returned any interest?
People
Dividends?
forget about that, huh? As Puckett moves back to make the catch. You're right. Everybody forgets about that, and when you think of George Bell's career, how cheaply he came at one point.
Signed initially with the Philadelphia Phillies and drafted, I believe, in the 80 season, or in the winter of 1980 after the baseball season of 80.
Might have been $25,000 back then.
Yeah,
maybe. It was originally. Either way, pretty good deal. In fact, they got Manny Lee that way.
Eric Yelding of the Houston Astros was acquired from the Blue Jays that way.
Randy Milligan pinch hits for Traber and hits one softly back to the mound, and Wayne throws him out. That's a 1-2-3 inning for the rookie left-hander. Orioles gone quickly. At the end of 7.5, it remains Minnesota 10 and Baltimore 2. This is our final regular season telecast. Guys, have a great summer, and I'll see you on Saturday night, October 14th, the night before Palmer's 52nd birthday, for the opening game of the World Series.
Well, wait a minute. Well, how old is McCarver going to be the next night?
I'm going to be 48.
Oh, okay.
48.
Well, you wear it well. Hey, and have a good time in Hawaii.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're going to leave Dan and Frank by themselves, right? Only for one Monday night.
Canton, Ohio, for a Saturday afternoon.
Saturday afternoon Hall of Fame game.
It's football season, right? Buffalo against Washington. A week from Saturday. I think we've gotten all of our promos in tonight, haven't we? You guys want to plug anything else?
Yeah. Say hello to Longy for me.
Yeah, sure. Why not? In a 10-2 game.
Well, if you had to pick two teams, who would you pick to be in the World Series right now?
Well, it's going to open, let's see, in the American League Park. Boy, I'm telling you, in the East, good luck trying to pick a winner. And I'm beginning to believe in the Angels in the West. But I still think Oakland is the team to beat in the American League. I think Oakland will be there. What do you think, Jim?
Well, right after this, this pop fly.
Lardner popping it up, and it's Milligan who's taken over at first, and Traver making the catch. One away.
Well, the three quality teams in the American League are Kansas City, California. Of course, Kansas City, with all the injuries, they haven't been able to play up to their expectations. But the two other teams, the A's and the Angels, are really tough to beat, mainly because of their pitching. Nobody in the East, talking about American League, can even contend with them because of that fact. But I'll go with the A's. I had a chance to see him last weekend. Canseco's back. Weiss will be back, hopefully, at least they hope.
Holton working on Gaetti. And Tim, what do you think?
I think it's going to be a base series. I think the A's and the Giants.
I was just going to
first time
second that motion, in fact. I think there's a real good possibility of that happening.
You never know what's going to happen in 4 out of 7 playoff games. The Dodgers proved that last year.
Sure.
Not only in the National League Championship Series, but the World Series. They beat the Mets in 7 and the A's in 5. But I think the Giants and the A's are two very, very strong possibilities to play each other in the World Series.
Brian Holton, talk about losing streaks. While they started this losing streak against Seattle, they're up in Oakland, and Brian came over from the Dodgers. Mickey Weston, who we saw pitch, in fact, came in and pitched very well and then hurt his arm. Brian, who is not his roommate, but Mickey, a rookie, on the disabled list at this time.
It's grounded wide of third. Worthington is there, and he takes care of Rodriguez for out number 2.
Brian Holton tells Mickey Weston, hey, he said, you know, I had a great time today. I went out whale watching up in Oakland. He said, meet me in the lobby at 5:15 tomorrow morning, and we'll go again. Great time. So there's Mickey, about 5:15, 5:30. Brian doesn't show up at the ballpark. Mickey says, hey, did you oversleep this morning? He really thought so. Brian said, hey, you know what, ESPN is having a submarine race in Kansas City this weekend. Maybe you want to go.
And he wasn't kidding.
They do a little bit of everything. So even though they are playing very poorly, they are getting a few chuckles. Tell you what, really, come to think of it, last night's game, they're ahead 4-0. They end up losing at 5-4. If you're going to lose, you'd rather lose this way. I mean, getting smoked 10-2, than lose the game you should have won.
Castillo takes a curve away. The only problem with that Holton-Weston thing is that I saw Weston before the game. He has vowed revenge. And I watched him downtown today shopping for grenades. I don't know if that means anything.
Army-Navy store?
Yeah. That's hit down the line. Hooking, foul. Just foul.
Holton Weston, it sounds like a hotel chain. You know, you're into that, Al.
Used to be.
That's true.
The
Carmelo. Yeah, Carmelo Castillo. Came over from Cleveland. For Keith Atherton. Want to upgrade their right-handed hitters. And they have. He's hitting 281.
2-2.
And the winner of this ball game at one time with Cleveland, Roy Smith. Matter of fact, he was traded to Cleveland when the Phillies got John Denny, and John Denny went out the next year and became the Cy Young Award winner in 1983.
He'll pitch the Phillies to the pennant.
The Jim Palmer-led Orioles beat the Phillies for the World Championship that year.
Yeah, I led them.
Well, you won a ball game. I think game 3 or 4.
Game 3.
In relief.
Meanwhile, what'd you think of that bunt attempt by Castillo there?
Trying to wait on a curveball.
Fouled away again. 2-2.
Brian has struggled. I mean, last year you talked about The Dodgers, overachievers, getting all the way to the World Series, probably wouldn't have gotten there if it hadn't been for Brian Holton. 7-3 with a 1.73 ERA, and during the season pitched great in the playoffs, and then in the first game of the World Series has had trouble in the American League. Fastball under 80 miles per hour. They've really been sitting on the curveball a lot this year.
And he takes care of Castillo, and the Twins are gone in order in the 8th inning. So to the 9th we go. 10-2. Ninth inning, Minnesota on top 10-2 at the Metrodome, which, by the way, will be one of the sites to be in use in this city in 1991. I had a chance today to talk to the old Minnesota Twin and former Chicago White Sox and Yankee infielder Roy Smalley, who makes Minnesota his home. And Roy is the executive director of the 1991 Special Olympics, which has really become a tremendous event, and it will be held right here in the Twin Cities area. And the way it looks right now, the opening ceremonies to take place at the Metrodome.
It's going to be an active 2 years, 91 and 92. 92, the Metrodome, the home of the Super Bowl and the NCAA Finals also.
And Viking fans are hoping that the NFC Championship will be played here next year. As the Vikings picked by many to go all the way this season. Sheets to start things in the 9th. Randy St. Clair out of the bullpen for Minnesota. 10-2 Twins.
Gosh, you think back to the first inning and how the game tonight changed around immediately. The Orioles with the bases loaded and nobody out, and they failed to score, and that probably was the ball game.
And at that point, Roy Smith was able to settle down. He retired 9 in a row. He started to stagger in the 7th inning. Kelly went to the bullpen. Meanwhile, Smith, per usual, getting great support. And Minnesota breaking it open. And Sheets draws the walk to start things here in the 9th inning. So Larry goes to first base with nobody out. And Worthington was accounted for both Oriole runs comes to the plate.
Yeah, but if you're a former pitcher or even a manager and you look at the scoreboard and you see 10 for the other guys, you know, yeah, that was a pivotal inning. But you still got to get better pitching and better defense.
Yeah, but if you score 3 or 4 runs, of course they scored 4 and lost 5-4 last night. But if you score 3 or 4 times the whole game, the attitude of the defense is different. The attitude of a young pitcher is different. And I think you have a different ball game.
That's grounded foul outside third, 0-1.
That's what a lot of people say. They see the game, they say it's 10-2. It's a blowout by the Twins, and say, what do you mean? It could have been a close game. But things like that, when it happens that early, can just drain a ball club like it has the Orioles, especially when they've lost 7 in a row coming in.
I agree with that. I don't agree that Harnish would have pitched any differently, but you're right. I'd like to get off on a good note. Key base hit. But I'll tell you what, Frank Robinson would have had a few more guys up in the bullpen, would have let Thurman maybe pitch to Puckett, might have done a few things differently. If you go back a month ago, he's using 3, 4, 5 pitchers a night trying to win.
Well, we brought it up earlier, the American League record for consecutive losses for a first-place team, 9. And the Orioles, not that they're going to try to tie that tomorrow night in Kansas City, but they will have the opportunity. That's foul back out of play.
You know, you talk about at what point in the season do you start looking at the scoreboard? Well, probably opening day. But when you're lost 7 and now possibly 8 in a row, you start looking at the matchups tomorrow. And Mark Gubicza will pitch for Kansas City. We had a chance to see him on Thursday Night Baseball. Won 20 games last year. A great ERA, under 3 this year, 9 and 8 because they haven't had a lot of runs. And he is not easy to beat. He's going to be in the game. You're going to have to play better baseball than tonight to win.
That's hit softly into left field for a base hit. So Worthington with a A single here in the 9th inning, sending Sheets to second, and with nobody out, Joe Orsulak will come up to pinch hit for Billy Ripken.
And I guess while Gubicza is going against the Orioles tomorrow night in Kansas City, you can't help but wonder if Frank Viola will be going against the Tigers at the same time in Detroit.
If you joined us late, that's been the hot story all day in Minnesota and in New York as well. The possibility of Viola winding up as a Met. And the names mentioned coming the other way are Rick Aguilera, David West, and Kevin Tapani, who at the moment is pitching for Tidewater, AAA. Popped up in foul territory, and it's Laudner underneath it and making the catch for out number 1. Orsulak gone, with runners at first and second. Assuming the Orioles do not miraculously rally, the standings in the East will look like this, with the O's on top and Toronto and Cleveland each off today, picking up a half game, pulling to within 4. Red Sox will be 4.5 back. Boston has 1 tonight. They beat Kansas City. Milwaukee would trail by 6, and the Yankees by 6.5 in that ever-tightening race. And a race will become ever-tightening anytime the leader loses 8 straight. Frank Viola in the foreground, and Jeff Reardon, another fellow whose future here is somewhat of a question mark. Reardon in the option year of his contract, and they broke off negotiations yesterday. And Jeff said, you know, I want to stay, but we'll see now.
Yeah, they're going to wait till October. And what would you say in July? You'd say, I want to stay, but we'll see.
Yep.
Saved 31 games last year, over 40 the prior year. Did that up in Montreal before he came here.
Well, think about if that deal is consummated. Would Rick Aguilera, as the short reliever for the Mets, coming to the Twins, put a lot more heat on Jeff Reardon's negotiating position? Or would they sign Reardon and make a starter out of Aguilera, who's been asking to start for the Mets all year long?
Definitely.
Yeah, I would think so. Especially with losing Viola.
Well, I'll tell you, how about this? Viola and Reardon to the Mets for the Tidewater Ball Club.
Say what?
I don't know. Well, to give up Aguilera, what the Mets have done is given up their short right-hander, so they'll still be deficient at some place.
Anderson hits it down the line and back out of play.
That's after giving up Roger McDowell, who was their other short right-handed reliever, to the Philadelphia Phillies, along with Len Dykstra, when they obtained Juan Samuel from the Phillies.
Well, as we say, you cover the Mets a lot. You do a lot of their games. Are they losing because of Gooden being out, or the fact that they're not getting enough offense too? Carter just coming back.
Yes. The answer to that is yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All of the above.
Still 3-2 on Anderson. And Anderson draws the walk to load him up with 1 out here in the 9th inning. So Kelly watching St. Clair struggle here in the 9th inning, but he has an 8-run cushion. And Phil Bradley coming to the plate. Strike, 0-1.
I think what Tom's muttering about is that on Tuesday night with a 9-3 lead, he brought Randy St. Clair in, and he had to get Reardon up that night. He didn't give up any runs, but struggled through the 8th. 1 inning pitch, 1 hit. Tom had to get his ace up.
And Reardon pitched last night, faced 1 batter, and wound up as the winning pitcher. That's grounded to Baker. He goes to Gagne 1, and that's all they get, and the Orioles get a run as Sheets crosses the plate. Bradley hits into a force. That makes it 10-3. And Mike Devereaux comes to the plate with 2 out of the 9th inning. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball, may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. To be honest, I don't think the replay of this would be a real hot seller at your local video store. Devereaux hits one in the air to deep left field, and that one is gone. Three-run homer for Devereaux to make it 10-6, Minnesota. So it starts out going into the 9th inning as a laugher is now a smiler.
Except for Tom Kelly. Home run number 5 for Devereaux on the year. High fastball, but it's not the home run, it's the 2 walks before the home run in a 10-2 ball game that upsets managers and obviously pitchers too.
Ripken 1 for 4, batting .274. 2 out, bases empty in the 9th inning. 10-6 Minnesota. Grounded toward the middle. Baker is there to glove it and throw him out. So it's over at the Dome. Minnesota sweeps the series, and the Orioles head to Kansas City with an 8-game losing streak. 10-6, the final score as the Twins win, and we'll return to the Metrodome in Minneapolis right after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Final score, Minnesota 10, Baltimore 6, with Roy Smith picking up the win. Harnish the loser. Worthington and Devereaux were the only home runs for the Baltimore Orioles. And we can tell you the executive producer of ABC Sports is Jeffrey Mason, and the coordinating producer of Thursday Night Baseball is Kurt Gowdy Jr., who also produced tonight's game, which was directed by Craig Janoff. Our technical director, Mike Blazo. Associate director, David Kiviat. Assistants to the producer, Manny Cabral and Rick Abbott. And our director of information, Steve Hurt. Our thanks to John Weinstein for his help in the booth tonight. Al Michaels along with Jim Palmer. Tim McCarver saying good night from the Metrodome in Minneapolis with a reminder that Saturday on ABC's Wide World of Sports, for the first time on broadcast television, you'll see the Mike Tyson, Carl the Truth Williams heavyweight fight from Atlantic City, plus interviews with Tyson and Evander Holyfield, the #1 heavyweight contender, as they discuss an anticipated showdown. And you'll see a special figure skating exhibition, the Tour of Champions. Olympic gold medalists Katarina Witt, Brian Boitano, and more display their skill and artistry. And Sunday, there's more boxing action on ABC Sports. Schlitz Malt Liquor Professional Boxing presents the WBA Junior Middleweight Championship as Julian Jackson defends his title against Terry Norris. Plus, 3-time world champion Julio Cesar Chavez, undefeated in over 60 fights, takes on Kenny Weiss in a non-title bout. Now, stay tuned for ABC News Nightline, following your late local news over most of these ABC stations.
ABC's Thursday Night Baseball has been brought to you by the Heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet, by Raisin Squares, the cereal with real raisin in the middle, By new FDR film from Kodak for advanced photographers, the genius is in the details. And by Shout, one tough stains out, squeeze lemon power Shout. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports, recognized around the world as the leader in sports television.